Chapter 234. At this moment, the Supreme Beings and ninth-rank experts that had gathered from all over the Greenwood continent looked at Lin Feng and Zhao Duo with eyes full of doubt and anger. Geniuses? They themselves were geniuses. To be able to become a Supreme Being, which one of them wasn't a super genius with outstanding talent? Every Supreme Being expert was a brilliant genius that could only appear once in several generations. No matter which one of them, in terms of cultivation talent, even a genius like Xiao Ran couldn't compare to them. And a genius like Snowflake Supremacy was an extreme genius that might not appear even once in 1,000 years. They had lived for hundreds or even thousands of years and had seen countless geniuses. Generation after generation, brilliant geniuses rose, grew, or fell. They were already numb to it and no longer had the slightest emotional fluctuation because of these so-called geniuses. Because geniuses also needed to grow in order to grow. No matter how terrifying one's talent was, even Snowflake Supremacy needed more than 100 years to cultivate to the Supreme Being level. The time other geniuses used was even more immeasurable. The gap in strength wasn't something that could be made up with talent alone. Which Supreme Being present didn't use countless years to accumulate their strength. Therefore, they absolutely didn't believe that Lin Feng was that mysterious senior artificer. They firmly believed that no one in the world could ignore the age gap and obtain achievements that they could only look up to at such a young age. Snowflake Supremacy was the best example. Not to mention these ordinary Supreme Beings. Even Unfettered Supremacy and Snowflake Supremacy had a trace of doubt in their eyes. Facing the furious gazes of the Supreme Beings and ninth-rank experts, Zhao Duo instantly felt his legs go soft and he almost lost his balance and fell down. He never imagined that such a situation would occur. He originally thought that with Lin Feng's appearance, all the problems would be easily solved and these Supreme Beings and ninth-rank experts would immediately stop. But reality proved that he had imagined everything too well. Or perhaps he had underestimated the influence of an artificer that could refine a 3-mark spirit armor. What to do, what to do? Zhao Duo was incomparably anxious. This was the imperial capital of Zhao country, this was Chaoyang Palace. This was the headquarters of Zhao country's imperial family. If this group of Supreme Beings caused a ruckus here, then Zhao country's imperial family would probably be erased from history in an instant. This was completely different from what he had imagined. There was a huge deviation. Smelling the faintly discernible smell of gunpowder, Zhao Duo's heart sank to the bottom of the valley. His expression was incomparably unsightly, as if in the next moment, the Zhao imperial family would perish. Your Majesty, there's no need to rush. Lin Feng still had a faint smile on his face. He said calmly, true gold fears no fire. If it is real, it cannot be fake. If it is fake, it cannot be real. Before Zhao Duo could respond, one of the supreme martial artists burst out laughing. It's real, it can't be faked. It's fake, it can't be real. Brat, your words sure are pleasant to hear. However, this old man wants to see how you're going to turn something flat into something round, and vice versa. There are hundreds of pairs of eyes here. Are you sure your trick can fool everyone? No one believed Lin Feng. No one. This kid is quite interesting. The corners of the unfettered sovereign's lips curled upward. Snowflake Sovereign blinked her beautiful eyes. He really has guts. The unfettered sovereign stroked his long beard, and said with a smile, although I don't believe that he is that senior weapon refiner, I'm very curious about what he will do next and how he will prove himself. As the two of them conversed in a low voice, Star Sovereign took a step forward. His sharp gaze landed on Lin Feng. His voice carried a trace of coldness and was extremely low. Your Majesty, I came all the way here just to see that senior weapon refiner. For this, even if I have to wait another year or so, it doesn't matter. I've already shown enough sincerity, but I can't see any sincerity from you. I can pretend that what happened just now didn't happen. Now, I hope that you can invite the senior weapon refiner who truly refined the three-patterned spirit armor. That's right, Your Majesty. Quickly invite the senior weapon refiner who truly refined the three-patterned spirit armor. If you're stubborn and still want to use this kid to deal with us and trick everyone, then don't blame us for being impolite. Everyone agreed, pointing their spears at Zhao Duo and Lin Feng. Zhao Duo was sweating profusely, but he couldn't defend himself. He felt extremely bitter in his heart. Lin Feng is right in front of you. Where else can I find a senior weapon refiner who truly refined the three-patterned spirit armor for you? The unfettered sovereign's brows were filled with a faint smile as he said in a low voice, "Let's see how this kid will deal with it next." Lin Feng's expression remained unchanged, as if he didn't feel the pressure from dozens of Supremes and hundreds of Stage 9 experts at all. He walked in front of Zhao Duo as if he was taking a stroll in the park, blocking Zhao Duo behind him. He turned his head to look at Zhao Duo and said calmly, "Thank you for doing so much for me. Next, you just need to watch quietly from the side." Zhao Duo asked worriedly, "Can you do it?" Lin Feng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "It's not a big deal, why can't I?" Then, he turned his head and looked at the Supremes. Seeing Lin Feng turn his head to look at them, the gazes of the Supremes became sharper, as if they wanted to pierce through Lin Feng. At this moment, everyone's attention was focused on Lin Feng. Facing everyone's gazes, Lin Feng asked, "Why can't I be the weapon refiner who refined the three-patterned spirit armor?" Star Sovereign's frown deepened. "Are you still so stubborn at this time?" He snorted coldly and said, "Since you want to know the reason, then I'll tell you. The reason is very simple. You're too young." "Young?" Lin Feng smiled and didn't care at all. "Is it wrong to be young?" "It's not wrong to be young, but being young means that your achievements are destined to be limited." Star Sovereign said indifferently, "I've seen too many geniuses. If there aren't 10,000 of them, there are at least 8,000. There's no lack of shocking geniuses among them. But no matter how high a person's talent is, it needs time to settle down. No one can reach the heavens in a single step. All the Supremes have walked step by step. Your bone age tells me that you're at most 21 years old. 21 years old. Even if you're the #1 genius in history, surpassing any genius in the written records of the Greenwood continent, your achievements are still limited." After he finished speaking, his eyes flashed. "In theory, refining the three-patterned spirit armor is dozens of times more difficult than breaking through to become a supreme being." His words echoed the thoughts in everyone's hearts. Observing everyone's expressions, one could be sure that they were thinking the same thing. "Now, do you have anything else to say?" Star Sovereign's hand was already on the hilt of his sword unknowingly. All the Supremes also looked at Lin Feng mockingly. "Nothing to say, right? Ha ha ha, ha." Unexpectedly, Lin Feng laughed as if there was no one around, as if he was laughing at their ignorance. Just as everyone's patience was exhausted and they couldn't hold it in any longer and were about to attack, Lin Feng suddenly stopped laughing. He slowly raised his head and looked at everyone. His eyes, which were as bright as stars, flickered with a strange light. He slowly opened his mouth and said, "Seniors, I wonder if you've heard of this saying? Unfettered supremacy sighed. Although this kid's character isn't great, his courage is admirable." Fluttering Snow's supremacy blinked. "I'm more interested in which saying he's talking about." Star Sovereign looked at Lin Feng indifferently and didn't say a word. The rest of the Supremes and 9th-level powerhouses also looked at Lin Feng in silence. "Ning Shao, white-bearded lord, don't bully a young man because he's poor." Lin Feng said each word with a pause. His tone was firm and unyielding. In an instant the whole place was silent. Star Sovereign, who bore the brunt of it, stopped breathing. His face turned even uglier. "Ning Shao, white-bearded lord, don't bully a young man because he's poor." Unfettered Supremacy and Fluttering Snow Supremacy were also stunned. They didn't expect Lin Feng to say such a thing. The rest of the Supremes were also stunned. When they came back to their senses, they were even more furious. Without waiting for the Supremes to speak, Lin Feng said indifferently, "Whether Lin Feng is fooling all of you or if he's really capable, there's no need to argue. Once all of you have seen Lin Feng's equipment, you'll know what's true and what's false." After saying this, he ignored all the Supremes and walked towards the Civil and Martial Hall alone. The scorching sun hung high in the sky. Under the scorching sunlight, the skinny figure walked with firm steps, moving further and further away. "Haha, then let me see how a 21-year-old brat can refine a 3-patterned spirit armor." Star Sovereign flicked his sleeves and followed with an indifferent expression. The rest of the Supremes and 9th-level powerhouses looked at each other and took a deep breath. They temporarily suppressed the anger in their hearts and followed. Fluttering Snow Supremacy was a little dazed. This kid actually has such pride. She shook her head. Maybe I'm wrong. If he really has pride, he wouldn't say that he's the equipment refiner who refined the 3-striped spiritual armor. Do you think so too? Unfettered Supremacy thought for a while and then smiled faintly. Let's go and take a look. Seeing that everyone had left, Zhao Duo heaved a sigh of relief. Looking at the departing figures of the group, Zhao Duo thought to himself, there won't be any more accidents, right? If there were any more accidents, then he really wouldn't be able to bear it. Lin Feng, everything depends on you. Zhao Duo murmured. Refine a 3-striped spiritual armor, and let these arrogant old fellows see your elegance. Let them see the elegance of the number 1 genius in history. In the distance, beside the Civil and Martial Hall, in the equipment refining room, Lin Feng slowly stepped in. Outside was a group of 9th-level powerhouses, and high up in the sky was a group of Supremes. Everyone was waiting. Ning Xiao, the white-bearded duke, don't bully the young for being poor. This sentence had left a deep and indelible impression in their mind. They wanted to see what kind of ability this person who dared to say such a sentence had. P.S. The 16th chapter of the 18 crazy chapters. The last 2 hours, still not giving up? Refining Group, 204275549. Chapter 235. A moment later, a golden-armored warrior carried a wooden box and walked over quickly. After entering the refining room, the golden-armored warrior retreated respectfully. Only Lin Feng was left in the crafting room, but the door was open. Through the door, one could clearly see the set of crafting tools and Lin Feng, who was standing beside them. "Kid, hurry up and start," a supreme martial artist urged. Lin Feng glanced at him and said with a faint smile, "The 3-patterned spirit armor is not ordinary armor. If I rush, I can't guarantee success." These words immediately choked the supreme martial artist until he couldn't say a word. The Star Sovereign stood outside and looked at Lin Feng indifferently, not looking anxious at all. Whether it was success or failure, the answer would be revealed sooner or later. Why should he be anxious now? Outside the crafting room, hundreds of experts looked at the skinny figure in the crafting room. They were all silent. Inside the refining room, the thin figure with a faint smile took out 9 sets of rare materials from the wooden box and slowly weighed them, as if sensing the condition of the materials. His movements were neither fast nor slow, and there was a faint confidence on his face, looking calm and unruffled. After about 10 breaths, he put down all the materials, slowly squatted down, and lit the furnace. Boom! In the furnace, a weak flame burned slowly. At this moment, everyone's attention was highly focused. Among them, there were a few who were weapon refiners. Even if they weren't weapon refiners, after living for so long and seeing so many weapon refiners, they should be very familiar with weapon refiners. Although they weren't experts, they could be considered half an expert. They could still distinguish the level of refining ability, good and bad. Lin Feng was not in a hurry to pull the wheel fan. Instead, he adjusted some of the gap in the furnace and the position of the wheel fan, moved the bellows a little further away, and then closed his eyes as if sensing something. This kid is deliberately mystifying. The supreme martial artists couldn't help but shake their head. Does he really think that we are so easy to fool? However, they didn't disturb him, lest this kid blame them if he failed. Suddenly, Lin Feng opened his eyes and they shone brightly. Explode! Lin Feng gently pulled the wheel fan and silently uttered a word. The next moment, a roar came from the furnace. Boom! The weak flame, which was like a small flame, had magically increased by a large margin. The flame happily jumped about in the furnace. This miraculous scene immediately caused everyone's eyes to widen as they held their breaths. Before they could react, 3 breaths later, Lin Feng pulled the wheel fan again. Boom! The cheerful flame immediately burned fiercely. The scorching light became incomparably dazzling. Flames of such intensity had already surpassed the limits of the majority of 6-star artificers. In this world, only Nie Fan, Yun Yunfei, and Mu Wushuang were capable of such a feat. The mockery on everyone's faces disappeared without a trace and was replaced by a solemn expression. Their gazes contained a trace of astonishment. No one would have thought that Linfeng's palm fire ability would be so terrifying. In fact, in Linfeng's palm fire, these Supreme Being experts could even vaguely see the shadow of the laws. What the hell? They hurriedly shook their heads and cast aside this absurd thought. How could a 21-year-old kid possibly comprehend the mysteries of the laws? But now they had already put away their initial thoughts. Even if they didn't admit that Lin Feng was the Artificer Senior who had refined the 3-patterned spirit armor, they had to admit that they were convinced by Lin Feng's palm fire technique. I have to say that this kid's palm fire ability is ranked at the top even among all the artificers I've seen. Even that fellow Nie Fan isn't much stronger than this kid. However, just as this thought came to their minds, their eyes suddenly widened. Boom! 3 breaths later, a violent sound came from the furnace again. The blazing flames actually rose to another level on top of the existing foundation. It was this level that caused the flame to surpass the limit and undergo a transformation in an instant. 3 eruptions, but the eruption of a volcano was deduced. Heavens, this kid can actually raise the flame again. Everyone was shocked, and their stunned expressions slowly turned into shock. Such a flame had already surpassed the level of ordinary flames and wasn't much different from the Earth's core flames. At this moment, no one dared to underestimate Lin Feng anymore. The moment an expert made a move, one would know whether or not he was a real expert. Lin Feng's palm fire technique could be said to be the best in the world. Fluttering Snow Prime's pretty face turned pale, and she exclaimed, "So impressive!" Carefree Prime smiled and said, "Perhaps the best is yet to come." "What do you mean?" Fluttering Snow Prime turned her head and asked. Carefree Prime laughed and said mysteriously, "I can't say. Just watch and you'll know in a while." Amidst the Supreme Being's low exclamations, Lin Feng didn't seem to notice as he quickly stabilized the incomparably violent flame. In Lin Feng's hands, the violent flame turned into a docile sheep and was controlled by Lin Feng as he pleased. This move once again made the Supreme Beings exclaim in amazement. Even they themselves didn't realize that the anger in their hearts had gradually dissipated. The only thing that remained in their hearts was incomparable shock and a faint sense of anticipation. Star Sovereign was expressionless from beginning to end. The gaze he looked at Lin Feng with had never changed. However, his gradually heavier breathing proved that his heart was far from as calm as it appeared on the surface. "It's about time." After the flame stabilized, Lin Feng unhurriedly placed the 9 sets of materials into the furnace one by one. Every time he placed a set of materials, he would wait for a short period of time. After about 10 breaths, the 9 sets of materials were all placed into the furnace. In the gentle but scorching flames, the 9 sets of rare materials were quickly refined. A large amount of impurities were rapidly removed and flowed through the furnace's waste outlet into a bucket filled with clear water. The closer it was to the critical moment, the heavier everyone's breathing became. After about 10 breaths of time, the 9 sets of materials merged into one. They were indistinguishable from each other and were sparkling and translucent. The surface emitted a faint, strange light. At this moment, everyone couldn't help but hold their breaths. The time to reveal the answer is about to come. Star Sovereign's expression suddenly became serious. Unfettered Sovereign and Snowflake Sovereign's attention was also focused. Under the gaze of all the Sovereign experts, Lin Feng slowly raised the giant hammer. The giant hammer in his hand was like a heavenly steed soaring across the sky. It was untraceable, but it vaguely formed an invisible trajectory. The invisible trajectory formed an incomparably beautiful arc. In this arc, the shadows of more than 400 fusion techniques could be vaguely seen. However, it was different from any of the fusion technique. Compared to the previous refining, Lin Feng was more relaxed this time. Every time he swung the giant hammer, it was effortless. Everyone's gaze followed the giant hammer as it slowly moved. The trajectory of the giant hammer was clearly imprinted in their eyes and engraved in their minds. Invisible and mysterious fluctuations spread out from the trajectory, like the sparkling waves on the surface of a lake. At that moment, all the utmost exalts, including the star exalted, the unfettered exalted and the snowdrift exalted, sank into the trajectory. The birth, growth, and death of the world played out in their mind. Wind, fire, water, lightning, light, darkness. Everything was born from the earth. With the earth, everything was possessed. The earth gave birth to all living things and evolved into the world. That blurry picture scroll slowly unfolded in everyone's minds once again. In the picture scroll, they felt warmth, the warmth from the earth. They felt the benevolence of the earth, the tolerance of the earth, and the weight of the earth. Everyone was immersed in these crisscrossing invisible trajectories, or immersed in these invisible fluctuations. Their hearts were greatly impacted, and the softest part of their hearts was deeply touched. Compared to the 9th stage powerhouses, the sovereigns felt it more deeply, and their hearts were more shocked. Outside the refining room, there was dead silence. The super experts who controlled the fate of the world silently shed tears from the corners of their eyes. They gently dripped onto the ground and soaked the earth. These were tears of being moved. Every Supreme Being expert had let down their guard and removed their disguises, returning to their most natural state. There was a faint smile on their faces, a sincere smile that came from the bottom of their hearts. It was very sweet, very beautiful, and like the spring breeze, it refreshed the mind. Although only a few breaths of time had passed in the outside world, to them, it was as if thousands of years had passed. They witnessed how the earth produced all living things, and witnessed the miracle of life. Unknowingly, layers of dark clouds gathered in the sky above the Chaoyang Palace. It was dark and oppressive. Slowly, Lin Feng stopped his movements, and slowly put away the giant hammer. He looked indifferently at the strange light that penetrated the furnace. Many sovereigns also slowly woke up from that strange state. They looked at each other, and all of them were shocked. A trace of coldness came from the corners of their eyes. They touched it lightly, and it was a faint, moist feeling. It vaguely proved that they had just experienced a shocking scene. Principle. This word floated in the minds of all the sovereigns at the same time. When they looked at Lin Feng again, their eyes were full of shock. Apart from shock, they already had no other emotions. However, at this moment, in the dense dark clouds above the Chaoyang Palace, bolts of lightning condensed in an instant. Rumble! A deafening sound came from the dark clouds. The ground trembled gently as if it was telling of fear. One by one, the sovereigns slowly raised their noble heads and looked at the thick dark clouds. What entered their eyes was surging and rolling lightning. Rumble! Along with the rolling lightning and thunder, deafening thunderous sounds rang out continuously. The rolling heavenly thunder shook people's hearts. P.S. We still lost in the end, but this nerd has already tried his best. The promised sixth watch still counts. The fifth watch is here, and the sixth watch will be here later. In addition, a new battle begins in a new month, seeking guaranteed monthly votes and recommendation votes. Chapter 236. He succeeded. He didn't tease us. He really refined the three-striped spiritual armor. At that moment, everyone stared blankly at the lightning in the sky, motionless. No one had expected that Lin Feng would really refine the three-striped spiritual armor. The flashing lightning in the sky, as well as the occasional rumbling of thunder, proved that. Everyone sucked in a mouthful of cold air. Even utmost exalted like them couldn't help but feel apprehensive. They weren't shocked by how terrifying the lightning was or how loud the sound was. They were shocked by Lin Feng's terrifying talent. At the age of 21, he had really refined the three-striped spiritual armor. They slowly retracted their gazes, lowered their heads, and looked at Lin Feng again. However, this time, their gazes had undergone an earth-shattering change. Looking at the slightly skinny figure, the young man who still had a faint smile on his face, they instantly sighed in their hearts. At the same time, they were extremely ashamed, too ashamed to face Lin Feng. Ning Xiao, white-bearded lord, don't bully the young for being poor. For some reason, when they looked at Lin Feng, they thought of that sentence again, and the powerful words that Lin Feng had said just now appeared in their mind. Star supremacy had a faint bitterness at the corner of his mouth. It turns out that such a genius really exists in this world. He let out a low, inaudible sigh. The sigh contained complicated emotions: bitterness, shame, lamentation, and envy. This sigh also broke the silence in the surroundings. 21 years old. Even if he has been learning to refine weapons since he was born, in just 21 years, he has achieved something that others can't achieve in hundreds or even thousands of years. Even though I've seen it with my own eyes, I still find it hard to believe. Compared to him, are we still considered geniuses? We've wasted all our years. For a moment, everyone started to doubt themselves. All of them were unique geniuses in their respective eras. Every one of them was the brightest star in their respective eras. They were outstanding figures who stood out from countless geniuses. Their talent was so high that no one could compare to them. However, in front of Lin Feng, they realized that the talent that they were proud of was nothing. Genius. This word made them feel extremely ironic. If this was considered a genius, then what was Lin Feng? No one could answer their question. Snowflake Prime also looked at Lin Feng in a daze. She had been a peerless genius in the eyes of countless people since she was a child, and was doted on by everyone. From the moment she stepped into the path of cultivation as a sorcerer, she had displayed shocking talent. She had been leading the way, breaking the records set by the geniuses of the older generation time and time again. In just a short 100 years, she had broken through to the level of a beginner supreme being, and in the following 200 years, she had cultivated to the level of a high-level supreme being. She had been in the limelight for a long time, and even the geniuses of the older generation were amazed by her. She had once thought that she was the most talented person in the world. However, on this day, her pride and confidence were inadvertently shattered by this young man. Unfettered Supremacy glanced at her and shook his head. Little girl, it's true that he's the best sorcerer in the world, but his greatest talent isn't in being a sorcerer. Fluttering Snow Supremacy's eyes widened. Could it be that he's more talented than sorcerer in any other aspect? Unfettered Supremacy shook his head helplessly and sighed. Have you forgotten the mysterious ripples he caused when he was sorcerer? Fluttering Snow Supremacy was instantly jolted awake by Unfettered Supremacy's reminder. The laws. Not bad, you finally remember. Unfettered Supremacy's tone slowly turned serious. Perhaps he's a sorcerer, but his greatest talent isn't in sorcerer's refining, but cultivation. Although he tried his best to calm himself down, his voice still trembled. He comprehended the laws of Earth at the age of 21. Although it's only a little, it's still unbelievable. He had lived for more than 1,000 years and had seen countless geniuses, but he had never seen a genius who comprehended the laws of Earth at the age of 21. He didn't know how to evaluate such a genius, because such a genius had already surpassed his imagination. He was absolutely certain that as long as Lin Feng didn't die prematurely, he would definitely break through to the elementary level of supreme martial artist within a few decades and easily break the record set by Snowflake Supreme. These words caused the fluttering Snow Sovereign to fall silent. A refining genius, a cultivation genius, any one of these aspects was a height that others would never be able to reach in their lifetime. When these two aspects appeared on the same person, then this person was truly terrifying. The other 9 Heavens Supremes also thought of this at this moment. Their emotions that had just calmed down suddenly became agitated once more. The unfettered sovereign seemed to have thought of something and suddenly smiled. I suddenly realized that Lin Feng is very similar to someone. Fluttering Snow Exalt asked curiously, who? A refining genius, a cultivation genius, and an ordinary person can't compare to him in both aspects. The unfettered sovereign's eyes became brighter and brighter, and his gaze became more and more fervent. There have been many geniuses like him in history, but the one closest to Lin Feng has made a great name for himself in the Greenwood continent. He can even be said to be extremely famous. Even our Xingfeng Plain is named after him. Although the unfettered sovereign didn't say the name of this person, the fluttering Snow Sovereign instantly guessed who he was talking about. War God. Xingfeng. That legendary figure that had been passed down in the world since ancient times, that figure that had left behind the thickest stroke in history, that figure that still had boundless prestige even after thousands of years. Today, after countless years, when this name was mentioned again, people still held reverence in their hearts, and didn't dare to blaspheme in the slightest. Since ancient times, no one had dared to call themselves number one in the world, except for Xingfeng. The fluttering Snow Sovereign thought carefully, and his eyes slowly lit up. It's true, this guy really is very similar to Senior Xingfeng. The two of them glanced at each other, and saw the uncertainty in each other's eyes. They had a guess in their hearts, but they didn't have any concrete evidence. However, they firmly believed in their guesses, because other than this reason, they really couldn't think of anything else that could create such an inhuman genius. Mountain Soul, in the depths of their minds, these two words faintly appeared. However, they didn't say it out loud, and instead buried it in the depths of their hearts. In the sky above the Chaoyang Palace, the dark clouds had already dispersed. The 3 rune spiritual armor had already passed the 3 lightning tribulations, and was picked up by Lin Feng. However, no one noticed it. They were still immersed in the deep shock. Seniors. Lin Feng's voice pulled the various sovereigns back to reality. They saw Lin Feng hide the 3 rune spiritual armor in his sleeve, and clasped his hands towards the various sovereigns. Now, the artifact forging is over. Seniors, do you still have any questions about my identity? This question left everyone speechless, and they blushed in shame. The truth was right before their eyes. What else could they say? At this moment, endless regrets surged in their hearts. If they had known this would happen, why did they do it in the first place? Star Sovereign smiled bitterly and said, "All right, little brother, you win. I apologize for offending you just now." Star Sovereign was quite a character. He was able to let go of things without the slightest hesitation. Lin Feng shook his head and said with a smile, "There's no need to apologize. My situation is indeed a little special. It's normal for all of you to find it hard to believe. I can completely understand." These words helped the various sovereigns out of their predicament, and they didn't feel so awkward. This kid has a bit of a gentleman's demeanor. Not bad. Everyone couldn't help but praise him in their hearts. Seniors, I can vaguely guess the purpose of your visit. Since all of you are here now, I won't hide anything from you. I hope all of you don't mind, Lin Feng said. Hearing this, everyone immediately became nervous and perturbed. They hadn't mentally prepared themselves to get to the point all of a sudden. However, they still smiled and said, "It's okay. Little brother, just say what you have to say." Although they tried their best to appear relaxed and calm, the little bit of sweat that appeared on their palms and the flickering anticipation in the depths of their eyes betrayed them. At this moment, even Carefree Sovereign, Fluttering Snow Sovereign, and Star Sovereign had some seriousness in their expressions, as well as a trace of hidden desire. The 3 lines spiritual armor was a fatal attraction to any supreme being. Lin Feng nodded. Under everyone's expectant gazes, he slowly said, "Before that, I want to say that among all the seniors present, I will only refine 3 rune spirit armor for 30 of you." When everyone heard this, they didn't have much of a reaction. Or rather, Lin Feng's words were within their expectations. In fact, Lin Feng was willing to refine 30 sets of 3 rune spirit armor, which was much more than they had expected. It had already greatly exceeded their expectations. After all, 3 rune spirit armor was a rare treasure. Naturally, it needed to be sold at a good price. Everyone understood this logic, and no one would blame Lin Feng. Moreover, even if they didn't get what they wanted this time, what about the next time? As long as Lin Feng was still around, they still had a chance. The condition for me to refine 3 rune spirit armor is very simple. The corner of Lin Feng's mouth cracked open, revealing a bit of white teeth. The smile on his face was extremely bright. 10 years. As long as you seniors are willing to listen to my arrangements, protect my safety, or help me solve some problems, I will agree to refine a set of 3 rune spirit armor for you. Of course, I can guarantee that I will definitely not let you seniors do anything that goes against your chivalrous morals and humiliates you. After saying that, he looked around and said, "These are my conditions. Seniors, why don't you consider it?" When Lin Feng finished speaking, all the sovereigns fell into deep thought. Carefree Sovereign and Fluttering Snow Sovereign looked at each other and then said eagerly, "Both of us agree to your conditions." Their attitudes immediately attracted everyone's attention, and their eyes were filled with astonishment. With the strength and status of Carefree Sovereign and Fluttering Snow Sovereign, especially with their usually indifferent and casual personalities, they were actually so anxious to agree to Lin Feng's conditions. There must be something fishy about this. Star Sovereign's eyes suddenly flashed with a bright light. P.S. The 18th chapter of the Crazy 18 Chapters. It's over. Everything is over. A new month, sprint. Requesting monthly votes. Weapon Refinery Group. 204276549. Chapter 237. The theme of this chapter is Gratitude. Thanks. Thank you, Lord Dragon Tiger, for your generous tipping. Thank you, Ji Qingyang and Shining Brilliance, for their great support. Thank you to all the brothers and sisters who have voted, recommended, subscribed, rewarded, encouraged, and cared about the Otaku for Refining Frenzy. For example, Smoked Sparrow, Blank Sixtails, Coffee 4 Rivers, Twin Dragons Playing with Pearl, The AI Refining, Daytime Wind, Flying Fox 1 Flute, Seeing Ghosts for 100 Days, 10,000 Years Elapsed at Fingertips, Happy Xiao Mo, Pale Blue Orange, Comindo, Baka's Yellow Flash, Alfalfa, Z Dugu, Super Simple, Master Bai is Coming, Snowfeather Stardust, East Sea, Ming Momo, Kind Heaven, Longhan Heavenly Lord, Chuanlu Bushi 20, Wishing the Motherland a Prosperous 1,000 Generations, Q. Happy Everyday Q, Sister Sister Sister, and many other brothers and sisters. There are too many people, so Refining Frenzy can't list them one by one. Otherwise, even 10,000 words won't be enough. I hope that the rest of the brothers and sisters who haven't been mentioned don't mind. Refining Frenzy sees your support and is deeply moved in his heart. Although you have only supported him silently and may not have said anything, Refining Frenzy can see your silhouettes from the tipping and votes record. Refining Frenzy remembers your nicknames. Every time I think of how many brothers and sisters have silently supported Refining Frenzy, I can't help but burst into tears. It's your silent support. A subscription, a tipping, a monthly vote, and even a chapter like. Many little drops make a mickle, and in the end, Refining Frenzy raised Refining Frenzy. Similarly, it's also you who have bestowed Refining Frenzy upon Refining Frenzy's current glory. In short, thank you. Thank you to all of us as a big group. Finally, a new month means a new journey, a new beginning. Brothers and sisters, please give your precious monthly votes and recommendation votes to Refining Frenzy. Chapter 238. If Unfettered Supremacy and Fluttering Snow Supremacy had considered for a long time and finally agreed to Lin Feng's conditions, Star Sovereign and the rest of the supremacies would not be surprised. However, the problem was that Lin Feng had just raised his conditions, and the two of them had agreed without hesitation. It was hard not to raise suspicions. It should be known that both of them were high-level supreme martial artists, and their personalities were usually indifferent and aloof from worldly affairs. They were rather fond of freedom, and the conditions that Lin Feng proposed were undoubtedly contrary to their personalities, restricting their freedom. Star Sovereign would be the first to not believe that there was nothing fishy about it. I agree too. Star Sovereign did not have time to figure out Unfettered Supremacy and Fluttering Snow Supremacy's thoughts. However, the two of them had agreed so readily that it made him even more determined. What was certain was that, if there was no special reason, Unfettered Supremacy and Fluttering Snow Supremacy would not have agreed so readily. They even seemed a little impatient. Star Sovereign did not know what had prompted the two of them to agree so readily, but there was one thing that he was certain of. Following their choice would definitely not be wrong. Unfettered Supremacy glanced at Star Sovereign and smiled. Star Sovereign's reaction is not slow. Fluttering Snow Supremacy did not say a word and looked at Lin Feng quietly. Even the three advanced supremacies had agreed to Lin Feng's conditions without hesitation. What else could the rest of the supremacies say? After being provoked by the three advanced supremacies, the rest of the supremacies could not afford to hesitate any longer. They all nodded and agreed. I agree. I agree too. However, they wanted to see how Lin Feng would choose. After all, there were so many supremacies, but only 30 of them could obtain the 3-rune spiritual armor. Would Lin Feng choose the 30 supremacies with the highest cultivation? According to the thinking of ordinary people, they would usually choose the 30 supremacies with the highest cultivation. After all, the higher the cultivation, the more advantageous it would be for them. Why not? They could only wait for Lin Feng's choice. However, Lin Feng's choice was beyond their expectations. First of all, thank you seniors for thinking so highly of me. Lin Feng smiled and said, as for which 30 supreme martial artists I'll choose to work with, it's actually very simple. Just now, when the supreme martial artists agreed, I took note of the order of their agreement. Therefore, I've decided that according to the order, the first 30 supreme martial artists who agree to my conditions will be my partners this time. For Ji Zun, with his powerful mental strength, he could naturally clearly remember the order that everyone had agreed to and would not forget it for a long time. On the contrary, it was Lin Feng who had such a memory that was out of everyone's expectations. According to the order, all the supreme martial artists looked at each other. Lin Feng's actions were always unpredictable. However, there was really no one who could find fault with this. The order represented everyone's desire and determination for the 3-rune spirit armor. The sovereigns who were chosen according to the order were undoubtedly those who desired the 3-rune spirit armor the most and were the most determined. Of course, the unfettered Exalt, Snowdrift Exalt, and Star Exalt were exceptions. Until now, the supreme martial artists still did not understand why the 3 of them had so eagerly agreed to Lin Feng's conditions. Those supreme martial artists who had delayed until the end and tried to be safe all smiled bitterly. Who would have thought that just because they had thought a little more and were a little late, they had lost a chance to get the 3-rune spirit armor? Sometimes it was very good to plan before acting and think thrice before acting, but sometimes it might not be suitable. Often, at some critical moment because of a moment of hesitation, it was possible to miss a good opportunity. Not wanting to take the risk, but wanting to be the first to eat crabs, how could there be such a good thing in the world? No matter what, Lin Feng had already decided, and naturally, he would not change it. Those supreme martial artists who had agreed to the conditions later took their leave very quickly, and did not make things difficult for Lin Feng. After all, they still had a chance to get the 3-rune spirit armor from Lin Feng in the future, and there was no need to be disheartened by a momentary failure. For these supreme martial artists, what they did not lack the most was time. Although there was a little regret in their hearts, they still smiled and bade farewell to Lin Feng. All of them were modest and courteous, and did not ask to leave a good impression on Lin Feng. They only wanted to be familiar with their faces, and not be hated by Lin Feng. After a while, the rest of the supreme martial artists left one after another. Although the level 9 experts were unwilling, even the supreme martial artist seniors had sensibly left, so they could only leave with regret. However, there were still a large number of experts who stayed in the Zhao capital, waiting for the next opportunity. The pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. They might not have heard of this phrase, but it did not prevent them from knowing this principle. Soon, beside the Civil and Martial Arts Hall, outside the refining room, there were only 30 supreme martial artists, and Lin Feng left. Seniors, my name is Lin Feng, and I am from the Jingmen City province of the Zhao country. Because I am inexperienced and have not seen much of the world, I do not know your names for the time being. I hope you can forgive me. Lin Feng said politely. Everyone smiled and said, "It's fine." The carefree Supreme laughed and said, "Since you don't know our names, let us introduce ourselves first. I will go first." After saying that, he smiled and said, "I am the carefree Supreme Martial Artist, a high-level Supreme Martial Artist. As for my name, it has been too long, and even I have forgotten it. Ha! Fluttering Snow Supreme, high-level Supreme Martial Artist." Fluttering Snow Supreme looked at Lin Feng and smiled faintly. Star Supreme, high-level Supreme Martial Artist. Star Supreme first introduced himself, and then said apologetically, "I offended you just now, I hope you don't mind." Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. "This is human nature, why would I mind?" But at this moment, he was secretly shocked. I didn't expect there to be 3 high-level Supreme Martial Artists. Originally, he was wondering if there was a high-level Supreme Martial Artist in this group of Supreme Martial Artists, but not only was there one, but there were 3. This time, he was overjoyed. With 3 high-level Supreme Martial Artists, he was more confident in dealing with the Shui family. Supreme Meng Luo, mid-level Supreme Martial Artist. A middle-aged man with an incomparably cold temperament said indifferently. Supreme Xing He, low-level Supreme Martial Artist. Supreme Feng Ying, mid-level Supreme Martial Artist. In a short while, the group of Supreme Martial Artists had finished introducing themselves. After knowing all the Supreme Martial Artists present, Lin Feng couldn't help but gasp. 3 high-level Supreme Martial Artists. 8 mid-level Supreme Martial Artists. 19 low-level Supreme Martial Artists. What kind of terrifying force was this? Not to mention the mid-level and low-level Supreme Martial Artists. Just the 3 high-level supreme martial artists in front of him were super strong enough to wipe out an empire. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that these 3 high-level supreme martial artists together could wipe out the entire continent without any effort. And if the remaining 27 mid-level and low-level supreme martial artists were added, then this force instantly surpassed any force in the current continent. Even if the 8 super clans joined forces, they probably couldn't compare, right? Apart from that, there were also Supreme Heavenly Thunder, Supreme Flying Fox, and 6 other supreme martial artists. Together, there were a total of 36 supreme martial artists. It wouldn't be difficult for them to wipe out any force in the world. Such a terrifying lineup was unique in the world. While Lin Feng was secretly shocked, a surge of ecstasy also surged in his heart. Shui family, your doomsday is coming soon. Lin Feng's eyes narrowed slightly, and a frightening dangerous light flashed across them. When this matter is over, it will be the time of your Shui family's destruction. He forced himself to calm down and said, Seniors, may I know if you have brought any rare materials? I don't have any rare materials here, so if you want to refine the 3-rune spiritual armor, you will need to provide the materials yourselves. Hearing this, Unfettered Supremacy, Fluttering Snow Supremacy, and the rest stared at each other in shock. Before they came, they were only thinking about the 3-rune spiritual armor, so they only brought a small amount of treasured materials or other types of treasures, intending to use them to exchange. However, they didn't expect that the one who refined the 3-rune spiritual armor would be a 21-year-old kid. What was even more unexpected was that this kid didn't ask them to exchange treasures for the armor, but asked them to stay by his side for a full 5 years. Of course, the most unexpected thing was that Lin Feng, the world's #1 weapon refiner, actually didn't have any rare materials. The world's #1 weapon refiner actually lacked rare materials? If this was spread out, who would believe it? But it was the truth. This Unfettered Supremacy suddenly felt very helpless. I didn't bring any rare materials either. Actually, there was no need for him to say it. Lin Feng roughly guessed this from their expressions, and he also felt very helpless in his heart. At this moment, Emperor Zhao Duo, who had been paying attention to this place, slowly walked over from the side and said with a smile, Seniors, if you don't mind, the Zhao country's royal family will provide the materials. He was extremely forthright, giving out hundreds of materials in one breath without the slightest bit of heartache. The Supremacies were stunned for a moment, but Unfettered Supremacy was the first to react. He cupped his hands and said, Thank you, Your Majesty. Take this as me owing the Zhao country's royal family a favor. Zhao Duo was instantly overjoyed. Without waiting for him to speak, the rest also nodded one after another, acknowledging this favor. This immediately made the Supremacies sigh in their hearts. Looks like the one who benefited the most this time isn't us, nor is it Lin Feng, but this little emperor. He only gave out a few rare materials, but he received the favor of a total of 30 Supremacies. Moreover, among the 30 Supremacies, there were 3 high-level Supremacies. Not long after, several golden-armored warriors carried all the rare materials over. Lin Feng began the longest refining process in history. On this day, 30 incomparably precious 3-patterned spirit armors were born in his hands. After a moment, dark clouds gathered in the sky and thunder rumbled. Once again, it attracted the attention of everyone in the Zhao country. Even outside the Zhao country, some experts who were cultivating in seclusion also focused their attention on the Zhao country. They stared at the black clouds above the Chaoyang Palace and the flashing thunder from time to time. A quarter of an hour, a stick of burning leaf incense, an hour, 2 hours, one after another, 3 patterned spirit armors withstood the baptism of the thunder and lightning, and were born magnificently. Until night fell, the thunder and lightning still didn't stop. The strange light and the flashing thunder and lightning made this ancient city slowly become dreamy and illusory, and people couldn't help but be intoxicated by it. The continuous birth of 33 patterned spirit armors and the continuous thunder and lightning for 4 hours caused the entire Zhao country to boil over again. P.S. There will be a second update later. I just took a look at the monthly votes list and found that it increased by a lot. Brothers and sisters, thank you for your support, thank you. Chapter 239. Lin Feng's promise to give the 30 supreme martial artists the 3 patterned spiritual armor was fulfilled on the spot. When the group of supreme martial artists received the 3 patterned spiritual armor of their dreams, they inexplicably heaved a sigh of relief, and a smile appeared on their faces. They had traveled thousands of miles and waited here for more than 3 months. Wasn't it all for the 3 patterned spiritual armor? Thank you, little brother. Although this was a deal, the supreme martial artists still felt that they had taken advantage of him, and their words were rather polite. Lin Feng smiled and said, "Seniors, you're too polite. The 3 patterned spiritual armor is something that you deserve. There's no need to thank me." At this moment, Zhao Duo suggested, "Seniors, Mr. Lin, it's already late. Why don't we have dinner at Chaoyang Palace and rest for the night before making further plans?" Hearing this, Lin Feng pondered for a moment and then said, "Then I'll have to trouble your majesty." "Haha, no trouble, no trouble." Zhao Duo couldn't wait to trouble him a few more times. He looked at the supreme martial artists with a questioning look in his eyes. Carefree Supreme and the others also smiled. Since little brother Lin has decided, we'll naturally listen to little brother Lin's arrangements. After a while, the group of people had dinner in the civil and military hall. After dinner, Zhao Duo specially arranged a place for them to stay. They didn't reject Zhao Duo's kindness. After all, they owed him a favor, so the rest didn't matter. The next day, when they heard that Lin Feng had come out of seclusion, Heavenly Thunder Supreme, Flying Fox Supreme, Raging Fire Supreme, Ice Fire Supreme, Flowing Cloud Supreme, and Dark Nether Supreme all rushed over. They were originally tasked by Lin Feng to help teach some Qingfeng College students how to cultivate. When they heard that Lin Feng had come out of seclusion, they rushed over. However, it was too late last night. When they arrived, Lin Feng was already asleep, so they turned back and rushed over early this morning. However, when they saw Lin Feng, they were dumbfounded. Because they saw the group of people behind Lin Feng, especially the 3 people beside Lin Feng: High-Level Supreme Martial Artist, Carefree Supreme, High-Level Supreme, Star Supreme, High-Level Supreme, Fluttering Snow Supreme. To Supreme Martial Artist Heavenly Thunder and the others, these 3 high-level Supreme Martial Artists were like thunder in their ears. They were superior, and it was rare to see any of them. Today they saw 3 of them at once, and all 3 were walking together with Lin Feng. They must have reached some agreement between them. Of course, apart from the 3 high-level Supreme Martial Artists, they also saw many familiar faces. Among them were middle-level Supreme Martial Artists. It could be said that the strength of this group of people was so terrifying that it caused one's heart to palpitate. Supreme Martial Artist Heavenly Thunder Supremes, Star Supreme, and Star Supremes, Heavenly Thunder Supreme. Lin's Lin to Lin S's Lin S's S Lin S dozens. Lin S. Of the. They took a deep breath, looked at Lin Feng, and said, "Lin Feng." In front of terrifying experts like the Unfettered Sovereign, the Fluttering Snow Sovereign, and the Star Sovereign, even a clown like the Heavenly Thunder Sovereign had to restrain his temper. He respectfully shouted at the 3 of them, "Greetings, Unfettered Sovereign, Fluttering Snow Sovereign, and Star Sovereign." Carefree Supreme and the other 2 nodded with a smile. They did not say anything. Lin Feng smiled and said, Seniors, long time no see. Is everything all right? Yes, everything is fine. Supreme Flying Fox smiled faintly. Even though those students aren't particularly talented, they are surprisingly tenacious and extremely hardworking. Even we didn't expect them to improve so much. Lin Feng was surprised. Really? Supreme Martial Artist Flying Fox did not explain. He said, Lin Feng, you will know the answer when you meet them later. Yes, let's go and take a look now. Lin Feng nodded. Seniors, please follow me. Lin Feng, the unfettered sovereign, and the others walked side by side at the very front. The others followed closely behind them. Supreme Martial Artist Heavenly Thunder, Supreme Martial Artist Flying Fox, and the others hesitated for a moment. Then, they followed behind Lin Feng and walked with the other Supremes. After a while, they arrived at Qingfeng College. It was a very big college. In terms of size, Qingfeng College had surpassed Emperor Capital College. Moreover, the scenery in the college was beautiful. The buildings were not luxurious, but there was a sense of grandeur everywhere. The college was very spacious, and all kinds of facilities were perfect. As long as the college needed something, it would not be lacking. Moreover, it was of high quality. It was even better than Emperor Capital College. It could be said that Qingfeng College was better than Emperor Capital College in terms of hardware and facilities. This made Emperor Capital College, from the freshman who had just joined the college to the dean, extremely unconvinced. Zhao Duo had ordered everyone to keep their mouths shut about Lin Feng's matter. Therefore, those who knew about it did not reveal it. Naturally, the people of Emperor Capital College did not know that Qingfeng College was built by Lin Feng. They also did not know that Lin Feng was the top equipment refiner who could forge the 3-patterned spiritual armor. Otherwise, even if they were given 100 guts, they would not dare to be unconvinced. Not bad at all. After looking around, Lin Feng smiled with satisfaction. Not long after, Lin Feng arrived at the students' dormitory. The students' dormitory was a building made of pure wood. The wood was of the highest quality and was extremely sturdy. It was even better than stone. Hearing that Lin Feng had arrived, the group of students immediately woke up. They quickly tidied up and walked out of the dormitory. More than 300 students gathered outside the dormitory. They all looked at Lin Feng with excitement in their eyes. Xie Wenxiang stood with a smile. His wife did not come out, but his son stood among the 300 students. It seemed that he had already become a student of Qingfeng College. Jiang He Qiaowen and Yao Yongkai stood respectfully beside the group of students. Wait! 2 familiar figures appeared in Lin Feng's eyes. He exclaimed, Fu Yi! Master Fu! One was Fu Yi and the other was Fu Yi's father, Fu Yuanshan. Teacher. Fu Yi chuckled and scratched the back of his head. Half a month ago, my father and I happened to run into Senior Martial Brother Qiao and Senior Martial Brother Jiang on the street, so we followed them. Teacher won't blame us, right? Jiang He interrupted. Junior Brother Fu and Master Fu have been here for half a month. Since you haven't come out of seclusion, I took the initiative to invite Master Fu to be our Qingfeng College's refining instructor. Please forgive me, teacher. Lin Feng laughed. Hee, this is a good thing. You have done something good and have not done anything wrong. How can you forgive me? Jiang He, you did well. Thank you, teacher. Jiang He smiled foolishly. Then, Lin Feng clapped his hands and attracted everyone's attention. He smiled and said, It seems that everything is on the right track. I'm relieved. He turned to Xie Wenxiang and asked, Have you issued an instructor recruitment notice? Xie Wenxiang said awkwardly, We did, but, he said hesitantly, so far, only 2 or 3 people have come to inquire, and they are only rank 4 Earth warriors. I'm sorry, I didn't do my job well. After saying that, he lowered his head in shame. Obviously, he was very dissatisfied with his work efficiency. He stole a glance at Supreme Tianlei and the others. He wanted to say something, but he didn't seem to have the courage to say it. In the end, he swallowed his words. Lin Feng waved his hand and nodded understandingly. Qingfeng College is not famous now. It's normal that no one wants to come. You don't have to blame yourself. Although he said so, Xie Wenxiang was still a little disheartened. Qingfeng College now had everything except students and instructors. Although there were 6 supreme martial artists temporarily as instructors, who knew how long they could stay here? If there were no fixed instructors belonging to Qingfeng College, then Qingfeng College would inevitably fall into a passive situation. Without instructors, let alone recruiting new students, even the current 300 students would have no one to teach. To be honest, there was only one fixed instructor in Qingfeng College now, and it was Fu Yi's father, Fu Yuanshan. For a moment Lin Feng was lost in thought. No one dared to make a sound, fearing that they would disturb his thoughts. In fact, Lin Feng could have leaked a little bit of information. Perhaps he could have used a 1-striped or 2-striped spiritual armor to attract many experts, but he didn't want to do so. He needed some practical instructors with good character. Otherwise, no matter how strong an instructor was, if he didn't have the heart to teach students, what was the use? Maybe he was thinking too much, but Qingfeng College was entrusted to him by the old dean, so he naturally didn't dare to neglect it. He would rather spend more time thinking about it now than worry about it when there was a problem. He thought for a moment and said to Fu Yuanshan, "Master Fu Yuanshan, I would like to ask you for a favor. Is it possible?" "Please say it, Mr. Lin." Now, Fu Yuanshan completely treated Lin Feng as his senior. He had heard many shocking secrets about Lin Feng from Fu Yi, and Fu Yi naturally heard them from Jiang He and the others. Lin Feng said, "The college can't go a day without an instructor, so I would like to ask you to try to invite Master Han and the others. In terms of treatment, Qingfeng College can give them 3 times the treatment of Capital College. I wonder if Master Fu would be willing to invite them on my behalf?" Fu Yuanshan was more familiar with Han Lin and iron like a hook, so it would be most appropriate for Fu Yuanshan to come forward. Fu Yuanshan thought for a moment and nodded. "No problem, I can try." However, it seemed that just a few instructors were not enough. If Qingfeng College wanted to expand and develop, it would definitely need to recruit a large number of new students. And with new students, it would naturally need enough instructors. Lin Feng rubbed his temples. Suddenly, he saw Supreme Tianlei and Supreme Xinghe beside him, and his eyes lit up. His eyes lit up, but Supreme Tianlei and the others, as well as the other supreme martial artists behind him, were shocked. Could it be that Lin Feng is targeting us? Supreme Flying Fox, Supreme Heavenly Thunder, Supreme Galaxy, Supreme Wind Shadow, and the others felt their hearts skip a beat as they exchanged glances. Looking at Lin Feng's eyes that were getting brighter and brighter, they felt that something was wrong. Shameless, continue to ask for monthly votes. Chapter 240. All the supreme martial artists had a bad feeling about this. Supreme Heavenly Thunder, Supreme Flying Fox, and the other supreme elders were slightly better off. After all, they only had 5 years to teach the students of the Clear Wind Academy. Moreover, they were quite fond of the students of the Clear Wind Academy, so they weren't too upset. However, Supreme Xing He, Supreme Men Luo, and the others were so scared that they broke out in cold sweat. Asking them to teach a group of students for 10 years was really quite difficult for them. However, they had just agreed to Lin Feng's conditions. If they went back on their word now, wouldn't their reputation be ruined? I hope Lin Feng won't do this. The supreme martial artists prayed in their hearts. Unfortunately, God didn't hear their prayers. What they were worried about finally happened. Lin Feng looked at them with a smile. "Seniors, I wonder if you can do me a favor?" Asking them was giving them face. In fact, even if Lin Feng directly arranged it, they couldn't say no. After all, Lin Feng didn't ask them to do anything against their chivalrous morals. Moreover, this matter didn't affect their reputation. On the contrary, this was a matter of great merit. How could they refuse? Little brother, it's okay to speak frankly. Supreme Xing he squeezed out an ugly smile. To be honest, they would rather Lin Feng ask them to kill a few experts than let Lin Feng ask them to teach a group of students. At their level, since they had agreed to do something, they naturally had to do it. Moreover, they had to do it well. Otherwise, how could they show their faces in the future? Moreover, they were all supreme martial artists. If they couldn't even teach a group of young students well, it would also make them lose face. Lin Feng didn't think so much. He just happened to lack a mentor. Since he happened to have such a large group of supreme martial artists around him, he naturally wanted to make good use of them. After all, dealing with the Shui family was only a temporary matter. Lin Feng couldn't let this group of supreme martial artists do nothing during the 10-year agreement, right? Wouldn't that be a waste of so many experts? However, Lin Feng didn't need so many experts in other places. Therefore, Qingfeng College became his first choice. At this moment, the Unfettered Exalt, Snowdrift Exalt and Star Exalt all had unnatural expressions on their faces. If it were a group of genius students, perhaps they would not be so resistant. However, the students of Qingfeng College were only some of the more outstanding youths in Jianglong County. Compared to the students of the major provincial colleges, there was a huge gap. Compared to the capital college, one was flat ground while the other was in the sky. This group of supreme martial artists looked down on the geniuses of the capital college, let alone the little guys of Qingfeng College. Of course, if each and every one of these students possessed the same level of talent as Lin Yun, then not to mention inviting them to teach, even if they were chased out, they would still fight to be the first to teach. While the group of supreme martial artists was praying in their hearts, Lin Feng slowly opened his mouth and said, "Seniors, as you can see, Qingfeng College happens to be lacking some mentors. What I mean is, coming. Everyone laughed bitterly in their hearts. Sure enough, it was coming. The more afraid they were, the more it would come. What I mean is, I would like to specially invite all of you to be guest mentors of Qingfeng College. You can be considered as specially invited guest mentors." Lin Feng thought for a while and said softly, "Guest mentors." This new term caused a hint of doubt to surface on the faces of the supreme martial artists. What's a guest instructor? They had only heard of mentors, but this was the first time they had heard of the term guest mentor. However, no matter if it was a mentor or a guest mentor, they were still mentors. They couldn't help but sigh silently. This was a tough job. Lin Feng pretended not to see their expressions and explained seriously, "To put it simply, being a guest mentor is actually an honorary title given by Qingfeng College. You don't have to fulfill the duty of teaching. However, nominally, you are a mentor of Qingfeng College. You can consider it as a part-time job. However, I still hope that all of you can spare some time to teach the students of Qingfeng College." When they heard Lin Feng say that being a guest mentor was only an honorary title and that he didn't have to fulfill the duty of teaching, almost all the supreme martial artists heaved a sigh of relief. That's more like it. As long as we are not tied to this small college, all the supreme martial artists thought to themselves. In fact, Lin Feng had thought of inviting them to be official mentors, but he gave up the idea in the end. After all, he was facing a group of supreme martial artists. Perhaps these supreme martial artists cared a lot about the three-striped spiritual armor and even agreed to his 10-year promise. However, this didn't mean that these supreme martial artists were his subordinates and had to listen to his arrangements for the rest of their lives. If he restricted the freedom of these supreme martial artists too much, he could imagine that a group of them would be scared away immediately. Especially for people like the Carefree Master and the Fluttering Snow Master, who were indifferent to fame and fortune, this method would only increase their disgust. Therefore, Lin Feng took a step back. Since he couldn't invite them to be mentors, he could make them guest mentors, right? Although they were only guest mentors, if the news of 36 Supreme Martial Artist guest mentors spread out, it would still be enough to scare the world. Of course, if they were willing to do their best to teach the hundreds of students of Qinfeng College, Linfeng would naturally be more than happy to do so. However, regarding this point, Linfeng didn't insist. If they were willing to teach, it would be best. If they weren't willing to teach, Linfeng wouldn't force them either. In order to make this group of supreme martial artists more concerned about this matter, Linfeng gritted his teeth and said, "Among this group of children, most of their relatives died in the disaster 9 months ago. You can say that they are orphans who have no one to rely on. In the following 6 months, they followed me to the imperial capital on foot. On the way, they experienced many dangers and hardships, but they remained steadfast and never wavered. They only want to improve their strength as much as possible, in the hope that they can kill more demonic beasts in the future and avenge their relatives." As he spoke, he slowly bowed to the group of supreme martial artists. "Therefore, I hope that all of you can do your best to help them. Regarding this matter, Linfeng owes all of you a favor. In the future, if all of you have any requests, just let me know. If Linfeng can do it, I won't refuse." At this time, the eyes of the group of students were filled with tears. Some of them were thinking of their deceased relatives, and some were moved by Linfeng's words. Their resolute faces were filled with even more determination. Before the group of supreme martial artists could speak, Linfeng glanced at the group of children and said again, "Maybe their talents aren't enough for all of you, and maybe all of you think that they are destined to have no great achievements in their lives. However, I believe that as long as they are firm in their beliefs, their achievements in the future may not be worse than those so-called geniuses." After he finished speaking, the group of supreme martial artists fell into silence. Everyone's mood became exceptionally heavy. They looked at the group of children with a trace of pity and recognition. Just as Linfeng had said, although the talents of this group of children weren't much, their firm beliefs were enough to move them. Their achievements in the future would definitely not be bad. "All right, little brother, I can promise you that I will try my best to spare some time to teach them," Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist said. "As for favors and whatnot, let's not talk about them anymore. We should obey your arrangements now. It's already very good that you didn't force us to be the teachers of these students. If we were to take an inch and want a mile, it would be too much." Fluttering Snow Supreme Martial Artist took a step forward and looked at the group of children. Thinking of the past that Linfeng had described just now, her face shone with motherly radiance. Her voice was gentle as she said, "Don't worry, I will teach them with all my heart." Hearing this, Star Sovereign laughed loudly and said, "Since both Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist and Fluttering Snow Supreme Martial Artist have agreed, if I still don't express my opinion, wouldn't it prove that I, Star Sovereign, am a despicable person who goes back on his words? Little brother, count me in as the guest teacher." Since the 3 high-level Supreme Martial Artists had taken the lead to express their opinions, the rest of the Supreme Martial Artists didn't hesitate and expressed their agreement one after another. "Thank you, seniors." Linfeng immediately expressed his gratitude. This matter was settled. 36 Supreme Martial Artists. Among them, 3 high-level Supreme Martial Artists, 9 mid-level Supreme Martial Artists, and 24 beginner Supreme Martial Artists had all become the guest teachers of Qinfeng College. Moreover, they had all expressed their opinions just now. The meaning in their words was obviously not just a simple formality. They really intended to teach the students of Qinfeng College seriously. 36 Supreme Martial Artists, this was really a pioneering work. Since ancient times, when had there been a college with 36 Supreme Martial Artists in the world? Not to mention the Imperial Capital College of the Zhao country, even 10,000 years ago when the Greenwood continent was unified, the whole Greenwood continent was ruled by the incomparably powerful Hanwu Kingdom. Hanwu Academy, which was known as the most powerful academy in Hanwu Kingdom, only had a dozen supreme martial artists. Moreover, they were all academy elders and weren't responsible for teaching the students. Now, Qingfeng College had 36 supreme martial artists. If this was announced, any force in the world today would be deeply shocked. And this unremarkable little Qingfeng College would instantly become the most powerful and most popular top college in history. Qingfeng College welcomed its own spring. Thank you, seniors. More than 300 students spontaneously knelt down. Childish and innocent voices echoed outside the students' dormitory. Fluttering Snow Supreme's heart softened and he hurriedly said, "Good children, quickly get up." Xie Wenxiang opened his eyes wide, and an uncontrollable excitement surged in his heart. 36 supreme martial artists, supreme martial artists. He couldn't imagine how high Qingfeng College's status in the Greenwood continent would rise when this news spread out. As he thought about it, tears inexplicably flowed out of his eyes. "Father, did you see it? The great old dean who had dedicated his life to the college, the students, and the instructors. Would his spirit in heaven be able to see it? Would he feel gratified? P.S. The first update is here. Tomorrow, he will go to Huaxi Hospital for a diagnosis. On the 20th of last month, he registered a specialist at Huaxi Hospital. He will go for a checkup on the 3rd of this month, which is tomorrow. Actually, it's not a big problem. It's probably a small problem with his lumbar and cervical vertebrae, so he can't get out of bed in the morning. After a checkup tomorrow, there should be no problem. He will rest for a few days and continue to erupt in a few days." Chapter 241. Lin Feng heaved a sigh of relief after solving the problem of the source of instructors for Qingfeng College. Now, he only needed to solve the last two issues before he could calm down and cultivate in seclusion. The first and most important issue was the alliance with the Shui family, one of the 8 great families. It was like a ticking time bomb. No one knew when it would explode and how powerful it would be. Lin Feng had delayed for a long time. God knew what the Shui family was plotting during this time. Although the Shui family had not made any moves, Lin Feng did not think that they would let him go so easily. The relationship between him and the Shui family had reached a point where they could not be reconciled until one of them died. He had to act as soon as possible to gain the initiative by striking first and killing all threats in the cradle. Otherwise, if the Shui family targeted Qingfeng College, his disciples, his brother Lin Yun, or even the imperial family of the Zhao Kingdom and secretly sent assassins to assassinate them, it was undoubtedly the result that he did not want to see. The second issue was equally important. It was the marriage of his brother Lin Yun. Han Chao and his family had come to the capital with him. After entering the capital, they parted ways with him. Lin Feng and Zhong Wei were anxious to see the Emperor Zhao Duo and were worried that the Shui family would kill them. Therefore, they did not intervene in this matter for the time being. Now that he had the time, it was time for him to deal with this matter. Before dealing with the Shui family, Lin Feng decided to solve the marriage of Lin Yun first. Although he was extremely confident that he could easily destroy the Shui clan was one of the 8 great clans after all. What they had to face was not just the Shui clan, but also the other mysterious 7 great clans. The 8 great clans had a long history and rich resources. No one knew how powerful their trump cards were. If the worst happened, then Lin Feng might very well lose his life. Although this possibility was almost negligible, Lin Feng had to be careful. Therefore, before that, he had to ensure that everything was taken care of. Without any worries, he would deal with the Shui family. "Little brother, I once said that it won't be long before you and Wei Wei can be together. Even the Han dynasty won't stop you from being together. Although there were some accidents along the way and a year has passed in the blink of an eye, Big Brother's promise can now be realized." Lin Feng slowly exhaled, his eyes full of tenderness and love. The elder brother was like a father. Now that Lin Tao was gone, the two brothers depended on each other for survival. He had the responsibility and obligation to shelter his younger brother from the wind and rain, removing all obstacles. Perhaps he wasn't a qualified brother, but no one could deny the weight Lin Yun had in his heart. After settling all the students in the Qinfeng College, and leaving the 33 supreme martial artists behind, Lin Feng left Qinfeng College. He was going to the palace to prepare a huge gift for the Han family, a gift that even Han Chao might not have the guts to accept. Today, he was no longer the country boy who could be controlled by others, nor was he a simple genius. He had become the most popular top-notch craftsman in the entire Greenwood continent. He didn't need to care about the mood of a mere county governor. Even the powerful supreme martial artists were very polite in front of him and wouldn't put on any airs. Since I have enough power now, there's no need to delay this matter any longer. Lin Feng's lips curled up. I want to see what kind of expression Han Chao will have when the 3 runes spiritual armor that even a supreme martial artist would go crazy for is placed in front of Han Chao. At this moment, he couldn't wait any longer. The 3 runes spiritual armor was a treasure that even a supreme martial artist would be tempted to obtain at all costs. Before Lin Feng refined the 3 runes spiritual armor, even the imperial family of Zhao country didn't have such a treasure. Even many supreme martial artists couldn't get their hands on it. Han Chao was only a mere county governor. Would he have the guts to accept it? That's right, such a tempting gift. If Lin Feng dared to give it to him, would Han Chao dare to accept it? A 3 runes spiritual armor wasn't much to Lin Feng, but to a mere county governor, its significance was naturally different. The 4 of them walked on the street in silence. The unfettered Exalt, Snowdrift Exalt, and Star Exalt didn't know what Lin Feng was planning to do. However, they didn't ask him about it. Instead, they just silently followed by Lin Feng's side. They didn't care about what Lin Feng wanted to do. In any case, with their strength, as long as they didn't go against peak Exalts, then even if Lin Feng wanted them to unify the Azurewood continent, it wouldn't be too difficult for them to do so. When one's strength reached a certain level, they wouldn't care about any trouble. After entering the Imperial Palace, Lin Feng directly went to find Zhao Duo. Seeing Lin Feng, Zhao Duo was very happy. He chuckled and cupped his hands. Mr. Lin. Your Majesty, this time, I might have to trouble you again. Lin Feng said. Mr. Lin, if you have something to say, just say it. No matter what request you have, as long as I can do it, I won't refuse. In order to rope in Lin Feng, Zhao Duo spared no expense. Lin Feng said solemnly, This time, I have 2 things that I would like to ask for your Majesty's help with. Under Zhao Duo's curious gaze, he slowly said, First, I would like to ask your Majesty to lend me 27 sets of rare materials. They must be materials with a mild nature suitable for refining 3 runes spiritual armor. He planned to refine 3 runes spiritual armors at once. One of them would be a betrothal gift, one for Qinfeng College, and one for his younger brother, Lin Yun. Moreover, he would do his best to make these 3 runes spiritual armors reach the limit of what he could control. No problem. Zhao Duo pondered for a moment, then nodded in agreement. As for lending, there's no need. These materials will be a gift from the imperial family to Mr. Lin. Although there weren't many rare materials left in the Chaoyang Palace, the imperial family could still easily take out a mere 27 sets of rare materials. Of course, if there was a 0 behind it, it might be a little difficult for the imperial family. Speaking of which, apart from a portion of the rare materials that the imperial family usually consumed, most of the rest were consumed by Lin Feng. Ever since Lin Feng came to the imperial capital, he had consumed a lot of rare materials. If it weren't for the imperial family's rich accumulation over the years, they probably wouldn't be able to withstand Lin Feng's torment. Lin Feng didn't argue. He nodded indifferently. Thank you, Your Majesty. After a pause, he continued, as for the second matter, I would like to ask Your Majesty to come out and preside over a grand wedding. Hearing this, the carefree sovereigns trio and Zhao Duo all widened their eyes, doubting whether they had heard wrongly. Mr. Lin, we didn't hear wrongly, right? Zhao Duo was very surprised. He then joked, I wonder which family's lady has caught Mr. Lin's eye? Mr. Lin, just say the word, and we will immediately send someone to take care of it for Mr. Lin. Lin Feng shook his head. Your Majesty misunderstands. I'm not asking Your Majesty to preside over the wedding for me, but for my younger brother, Lin Yun. Your younger brother? Zhao Duo was stunned for a moment, but he quickly reacted. That's fine. It's also her honor that your younger brother has taken a fancy to that lady. Humph. Fluttering Snow Sovereign lightly snorted. He glanced at Zhao Duo, but didn't say anything. Zhao Duo immediately stopped talking. He glanced at Fluttering Snow Sovereign in embarrassment, and didn't say anything else. Lin Feng said solemnly, I hope that Your Majesty will be able to preside over the wedding of my younger brother, Lin Yun, and Miss Han Weiwei 3 months later, regardless of whether I return to the Zhao capital or not. Don't worry, Mr. Lin. Leave this matter to me. Zhao Duo agreed without hesitation. Lin Feng nodded. Only then did he relax. Next, it was time to prepare that big gift for the Han family. Not long after, Lin Feng and the rest, including Zhao Duo, all arrived outside the crafting room. I'm sorry, Lord Fun. I'll have to borrow your crafting room again, Lin Feng said apologetically. Fun Yi was flattered. Mr. Lin, you must be joking. It's my greatest honor to be able to use this crafting room for Mr. Lin's use. It's also my honor. This time, Lin Feng wasn't modest. He smiled and didn't say anything else. Walking into the crafting room, a few golden-armored warriors quickly moved the materials over. Then, they silently retreated. Unfettered Sovereign, Fluttering Snow Sovereign, and Star Sovereign silently guarded outside the crafting room. Zhao Duo watched from the side of the 3 sovereigns. Although these 3-striped spirit armors didn't belong to him, it was also a great honor to be able to witness the birth of these spirit armors one after another. Inside the crafting room, Lin Feng took a deep breath. Looking at the few boxes of rare materials, his gaze slowly turned serious. His expression was extremely serious. This was the most serious and attentive he had ever been since he came to the Imperial City. He hadn't had such a serious expression for a long time. The last time was when he was refining a spirit weapon for the first time in the finals. Lin Yun, I hope you'll be satisfied with this gift that I've prepared for you. Lin Feng slowly squatted down and took out the materials one by one. His movements were gentle and slow, as if he was caressing something he loved. His gaze also gradually turned from serious to gentle. This time, Lin Feng's speed was extremely slow. From sensing the weight, nature, and quality of each rare material to lighting the fire and palming it, every movement was meticulous. His expression was incomparably focused. From him, Unfettered Sovereign and the rest felt a seriousness that they had never felt before. After a full quarter of an hour, Lin Feng finally finished his palming fire. The flame in the furnace was also the limit of his control. Every strike after that took a lot of effort from him. Each of his movements was incomparably slow. Many clear yet blurry and untraceable contrasting trajectories streaked across the air above the furnace. His movements seemed to have slowed down by dozens of times, but the effect was surprisingly good. As the saying goes, fine work comes out of fine work. It was very reasonable. After spending a full hour, Lin Feng only managed to refine a 3-striped spirit armor. However, the quality of this 3-striped spirit armor was higher than any 3-striped spirit armor that he had refined in the past. The 3 lines were incomparably clear and emitted a rich and strange light, making one unable to put it down and unable to help but be intoxicated by it. Although he had only refined one set of 3-striped spiritual armor, the physical strength and mental strength that Lin Feng had consumed far exceeded the physical strength and mental strength that he had consumed every time he had refined a set of 3-striped spiritual armor in the past. At this time, his head was already dripping with sweat and his face was slightly pale. It was hard to imagine that with his ability to refine 3-striped spiritual armor in large quantities, he would be so exhausted after refining just one set of 3-striped spiritual armor. Rumble! Thunder and lightning flashed in the sky. Layers of dark clouds covered the sun, and the earth was plunged into darkness. The dark clouds and lightning this time were the most powerful since Lin Feng had refined the 3-striped spirit armor. Even the many common people, supreme martial artists, and level 9 experts who had long been accustomed to the frequent appearance of dark clouds and lightning in the sky above the Zhao capital's Chaoyang Palace still couldn't help but raise their heads at this moment and look at the powerful clouds and lightning in extreme astonishment. This lightning contained even more terrifying energy. Even supreme martial artists couldn't help but be shocked. Not long after, a high-quality 3-striped spirit armor was freshly refined. After refining the first 3-striped spirit armor, he didn't stop at all and immediately began refining the second one. Palm fire, refining materials, refining. The 3 steps that looked very simple actually consumed a lot of his physical strength and mental strength, making him even more miserable. He gritted his teeth and persevered. 2 hours passed. Another hour passed. Only then did Lin Feng slowly stop his movements. He took a deep, deep breath as he looked at the violently shaking furnace, as well as the strange, dazzling light flickering within it. He gently brushed away the strand of bangs stuck to his forehead that was blocking his eyes, and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. After a long time, that thin figure slowly walked out of the weapon refining room. Although he looked slightly wretched, he puffed out his chest and his eyes were full of vigor. P.S. This is the modified version. I hope everyone is satisfied. Today's 2 updates will be presented one after another later. Chapter 242. P.S. If you want to hear more of your voices and receive more of your suggestions, please search for Kdred on WeChat and follow it. Give more support to Refining Frenzy. After successfully refining 3 pieces of high-quality 3-pattern spiritual armor, Lin Feng walked out of the refining room in high spirits and bid farewell to Xiaoyao Supremacy and the others. When the 4 of them returned to Qinfeng College, it was already noon. It just so happened that the students of Qinfeng College had finished school. Seeing Lin Feng return, the students greeted him respectfully. "Dean." Lin Feng nodded with a smile and asked, "Do any of you know where Dean Xie Wenxiang is?" Lin Feng had arranged for Xie Wenxiang to be the vice dean of Qinfeng College. It could be said that he had inherited his father's position and continued to shoulder the responsibility of developing Qinfeng College. With Xie Wenxiang as the vice dean, Lin Feng was much more relaxed. Xie Wenxiang could usually make decisions on big or small matters. Lin Feng only needed to deal with some matters that Xie Wenxiang was not capable of handling, such as the problem of the previous instructors. "Dean Xie's office is over there." A student pointed to the deeper part of Qinfeng College. "Thank you." Lin Feng thanked him and walked over with Xiaoyao Supremacy and the other 2. In half a quarter of an hour, the group arrived at Xie Wenxiang's office. After entering the office, Xie Wenxiang saw Lin Feng and immediately bowed. "Greetings, Dean." Lin Feng waved his hand and said, "Do you know where Jiang He and the others are now?" Xie Wenxiang said respectfully, "They are in the first refining room on the first floor of the building diagonally opposite." Lin Feng originally wanted to ask someone to find Jiang He and the others. However, before he could say anything, Jiang He and the others had taken the initiative to come here. "Teacher!" Jiang He, Qiaowen, Yao Yongkai, and Fu Yi shouted one after another. Fu Yuanshan stood aside with a smile. The group of supreme martial artists waited outside the office and didn't come in to disturb them. Lin Feng looked at Xie Wenxiang, Jiang He, and the rest of the group, and his face gradually became serious, saying, "This time, the main reason I came here is to arrange some things. You just need to listen carefully." Seeing that Lin Feng was so serious, everyone also sorted out their emotions and became serious. "Before that, I want to talk about the Shui family's problem. I'm sure you all know what happened between me and the Shui family." Lin Feng scanned the crowd and said in a deep voice, "As long as the Shui clan is not eliminated, we won't have a day of peace. Therefore, I've decided to invite the seniors of the Nine Heavens Supreme Realm to the Shui clan after I'm done with the matters regarding the school and my brother, so we can strike first. Nip all threats in the bud." "Do you really want to deal with the Shui family?" Unfettered Sovereign frowned. Star Sovereign and Snowflake Sovereign's expressions turned solemn. Lin Feng looked at the three of them calmly and said, "The enmity between the Shui family and me is irreconcilable. If we don't get rid of the Shui family, then we will never have a day of peace. The trip to the Shui family must be carried out." Unfettered Sovereign looked deeply at Lin Feng and said, "Then do you know how powerful the alliance of the 8 great families is?" "I have a rough idea," Lin Feng said frankly. "The alliance of the 8 great families is the strongest force in the human world, and no one can compare to it." However, his tone changed, although the alliance of the 8 great families is powerful, I believe that with the combined strength of all the seniors, the alliance of the 8 great families may not be our match. Moreover, what we want to deal with is only the Shui family and not the entire alliance of the 8 great families." Hearing this, Unfettered Sovereign couldn't help but smile and shake his head, saying, "You're thinking too simply." Without waiting for Lin Feng to speak, he continued, "However, I still agree to help you. Actually, I've wanted to weigh the weight of the alliance of the 8 great families since a long time ago. This time, take it as fulfilling my wish of many years." Now that he had the 3-striped spiritual armor, he naturally didn't have to worry about his life being threatened. Fluttering Snow Sovereign seemed to always follow Unfettered Sovereign's lead. Once Unfettered Sovereign agreed, she nodded and said, "Although your thinking is very naive, I'm willing to give it a try with you." Seeing that both Unfettered Sovereign and Fluttering Snow Sovereign had agreed, Star Sovereign's expression was uncertain, and he couldn't help but hesitate. "Star Sovereign, now that you have the 3-striped spiritual armor, are you still afraid that the alliance of the 8 great families will kill you?" Unfettered Sovereign smiled. "Moreover, we've already agreed to listen to little brother's arrangements. Although this trip is a little difficult, there's not much danger to your life, so why hesitate? Don't tell me you're still planning to refuse? If this matter spreads out, where will your face go?" Hearing this, Star Sovereign snorted coldly, then nodded indifferently at Lin Feng. "Since both Unfettered Sovereign and Fluttering Snow Sovereign have agreed, what's the use of me insisting on it?" This sentence had already expressed his attitude. Lin Feng heaved a sigh of relief in his heart with the three's attitude. As long as the 3 high-level Supremes agreed, the rest of the Supremes would not refuse. "Thank you, Senior," Lin Feng said gratefully. "I'm not completely confident about this trip, so I'll leave Qingfeng College to Dean Xie for the time being." "If," Lin Feng's voice paused, "if I don't come back, then I hope that Dean Xie can shoulder the responsibility of developing Qingfeng College. As for the rest of you, all of you must listen to Dean Xie's arrangements." "Teacher." Fu Yi, Jiang He, and the other 2 immediately looked at Lin Feng worriedly. Xie Wenxiang said with a solemn expression, "Dean, heaven helps the worthy. This trip will definitely go smoothly." Lin Feng smiled faintly, perhaps. Then, he slowly took out a 3-striped spiritual armor from his sleeve and handed it to Xie Wenxiang, saying, "This 3-striped spiritual armor is one of the 3 highest quality spiritual armors that I've ever made in my life. Keep it well and treat it as the treasure of Qingfeng College. If any high-level Supremes are willing to join Qingfeng College in the future and promise to protect Qingfeng College, you can give this treasure to them." As he spoke, he glanced at Unfettered Sovereign and the other two. In other words, if any of them were willing, this three-striped spiritual armor would belong to them. "Dean, this." Xie Wenxiang's eyes widened. "No, this won't do. This treasure is so precious that you have no obligation to give it to the entire Qingfeng College." Star Sovereign suddenly said, "Little brother, what you said just now, is it true?" Linfeng smiled and said, "Of course." "Good, then I agree to join Qingfeng College. From now on, I will protect Qingfeng College." Star Sovereign said in an incomparably serious tone, "I can swear to the heavens in the name of Star Sovereign that from today onwards, I will do my best to protect the safety of the Clearwind Academy. Before I die, nothing will happen to the Clearwind Academy. If I violate this oath, I will be punished by the heavens and the earth." Swearing in one's own name could be said to be the highest oath. Once he violated this oath, not to mention whether he would really be punished by the heavens and the earth, he would definitely lose all his reputation and face the world from then on. Unfettered Sovereign couldn't help but look at Star Sovereign in a new light, saying, "This guy is a person who values friendship and righteousness." The fact that Star Sovereign had two sworn brothers was known to the world. Star Sovereign himself already had a three-striped spirit armor. Thus, this three-striped spirit armor was naturally not for himself. Furthermore, Star Sovereign had no descendants to this day, so this three-striped spirit armor was naturally for his sworn brother. For his sworn brother, he was willing to give up his life's freedom. This Star Sovereign was indeed worthy of respect. "Good, this three-striped spiritual armor belongs to Senior Star Sovereign." Linfeng didn't say anything else and handed the three-striped spiritual armor to Star Sovereign. After receiving the three-striped spiritual armor, Star Sovereign's face immediately lit up with joy. He said gratefully, "Thank you, little brother." This time, his attitude toward Linfeng was even more courteous than before. The addition of Xingqian supremacy could be said to be a pleasant surprise. It had also unknowingly removed Linfeng's worries. He believed that with the protection of Xingqian supremacy, a high-level supremacy, even if all 35 supremacies were to leave the Qingfeng Academy in the future, the Qingfeng Academy would still be the top academy in the world. Xie Wenxiang, Fu Yuanshan, and the others all revealed smiles on their faces. From this moment on, Qingfeng College could be considered to have a real foothold in the Greenwood continent. With the addition of a high-level supreme being who owned a three-striped spiritual armor, Qingfeng College's status would instantly soar. It wouldn't be much worse than a giant like the weapon refining sect. After settling this matter, Linfeng looked at Jiang He and the others. With an apologetic gaze, he looked at Fu Yi, Jiang He, Qiaowen, and Yao Yongkai and said, "Although I'm your teacher, I can't fulfill my responsibilities as a teacher. I can't teach you wholeheartedly. I'm sorry." "Teacher." Their hearts were heavy, and their eyes were still filled with worry. "Is the Shui family really that powerful?" Linfeng sighed and said, "The Shui family isn't scary. What's scary is the alliance of the 8 great families. I understand what you mean, but the battle between me and the Shui family is unavoidable. You don't need to persuade me." He waved his hand and said, "If I can return safely from this trip, I'll continue our relationship as teacher and disciple. But if I—" His mood became heavy as he said this. "Can't return, then, you'll have to find another teacher." Fu Yi immediately knelt down and said, "No, I'll only have one teacher, and that's you." Jiang He and the others also knelt down. "Teacher, please don't chase us away." Sigh. Linfeng couldn't help but smile bitterly and sigh. Seeing this scene, Xiaoyao Supreme Being couldn't help but laugh and cry. He said, "You don't have to be so pessimistic, right? With our strength, even if the 8 great families join forces, They might not be a match for us. Even if we can't win, we won't lose, right? He pretended to be dissatisfied. Looking at you, are you doubting our strength? Everyone was stunned for a moment before they realized what he meant. Lin Feng scratched his head awkwardly. That's true. Shaking his head, he chuckled and said, It seems that I'm worrying too much and being too pessimistic. That's right. Xiaoyao's supreme being nodded. Believe us, although the 8 great families might be stronger than you think, we're not useless. Moreover, we have one more advantage over them. With this advantage, we're already in an invincible position. Lin Feng looked puzzled. What advantage? The others also looked at Xiaoyao's supreme being in confusion, not understanding what advantage he was talking about. 3 lines spiritual armor. Xiaoyao's supreme being said helplessly, Have you forgotten that all 36 of us have 3 lines spiritual armor? The unfettered sovereign's words instantly caused everyone's eyes to brighten up. P.S. The first update is now available. The second update will come later. My novel Refining Frenzy will have more fresh content on the official WeChat platform. At the same time, there's a 100% chance of a lucky draw for everyone. Open WeChat now, click the plus sign at the top right to add friend, search for the public account Kdred, and follow it. Hurry up! Chapter 243. P.S. If you want to hear more of your voices and receive more of your suggestions, please search for Kdred on WeChat and follow it. Give more support to Refining Frenzy. After settling the matter of Qinfeng College, Lin Feng said in a low voice, Fu Yi, come with me. After that, he went to a remote place alone, and Fu Yi followed closely behind him. No, keep an eye out for me. If someone observes this place with their spiritual energy, inform me. Lin Feng said to Nono in his mind. He boss, leave it to me. Nono smiled. Don't worry, Nono is here. Even the spiritual energy of those old men can't escape Nono's senses. Lin Feng was relieved. Then he looked at Fu Yi and said seriously, There's something I hope you can give to Lin Yun when he comes out of seclusion. Then he took out a 3-striped spiritual armor from his sleeve, and handed it to Fu Yi. Master, these 3. Fu Yi said in surprise. Anyway, just give it to Lin Yun. Lin Feng interrupted him. If he asks, just tell him I gave it to him. Fu Yi nodded seriously. Don't worry, Master, I'll give it to Martial Uncle personally. Lin Feng patted him on the shoulder. You're the disciple I value the most and trust the most. I can only rest assured if I leave this matter to you. Hearing this, Fu Yi was very excited, and he said excitedly, Thank you, Master. Okay, put it away quickly. Lin Feng said, Don't tell anyone about this except Lin Yun. I'll keep it a secret. Fu Yi promised. After a while, the master and disciple returned to Xie Wenxiang's office. Lin Feng said to Unfettered Supremacy and the other 2 seniors, Can you come with me again? Unfettered Supremacy said with a smile, With pleasure. Fluttering Snow Supremacy and Star Supremacy didn't say anything, but they obviously couldn't refuse. As for the location of the Han Dynasty, Lin Feng had already asked the Minister of Revenue, Bian Xiangshan, to investigate. Every person who settled down in the imperial capital had a record with the Ministry of Revenue. Furthermore, there were only a few hundred people who had come to the imperial capital with Lin Feng that day. Excluding the disciples of the Clear Wind Academy and Lin Feng, there were only a few dozen people. Since there were not many people, it was naturally easy to investigate. Walking out of the Qinfeng Academy, Lin Feng asked a passerby for directions to the address and continued on his way without stopping. Babao Street, Nanmu Lane. Babao Street was a bustling street. Although it wasn't located in the center of the capital, it was still a bustling area. Nanmu Lane was the best residential area on Babao Street. Outside the lane was a wide and lively street. In the lane, neatly planted nanmu trees were isolated from the noise of the outside world. Moreover, a delicate fragrance was constantly emitted. It was secluded, elegant, and noble. It was one of the few high-priced areas in the capital of Zhao. At this moment, in a spacious mansion in Nanmu Lane, a group of people were sitting at a table and chatting happily. Lord Qin is now a third-grade official and a middle-ranked general in the Ministry of War. In his lifetime, he will definitely be ranked first in the Ministry of War and become a respected general. Brother Han, you flatter me. I was just lucky to be promoted by General Yuzhen. That's why I have today's status. Big brother, you are the most outstanding person of our generation. Although I later inherited the position of patriarch, Father personally said that you are the most outstanding person of our generation. In the future, your achievements will definitely surpass us. Now, it has been proven that Father's deduction was correct. After so many years, I am still worried about the trivial matters of the Qin family, but you are already a third-grade official. If Father knows about this in heaven, he will be very happy. Third brother, don't make fun of me. Compared to nephew, I, as an elder, am about to be overtaken. What is there to be proud of? The three middle-aged men were chatting in the hall and chuckling from time to time. They were in a very good mood. One of them was Lin Feng's target, Jianglong County's county magistrate, Han Chao. The person next to Han Chao was the patriarch of the Qin family in Jingmen province, Qin Qiong. The person opposite Han Chao was a middle-ranked general in the Ministry of War of Zhao State, a rank 8 Earth warrior, Qin He. The reason why the Qin family was able to do well in Jingmen province and gradually surpass the other families was that Qin He was a high-ranking official in Zhao State. The position of a middle-ranked general in the Ministry of War was even higher than the provincial governor. Qin He was not only a middle-ranked general in the Ministry of War, but he was also the most powerful one of the generals of the Golden Armored Warriors. He commanded 10,000 Golden Armored Warriors, and his power and strength were not to be underestimated. By the way, Brother Han, I heard my younger brother mention the marriage of my nephew, Qin Ku. I heard that your daughter is going to marry my nephew, Qin Ku? Is there such a thing? Qin He asked with a smile. Han Chao, Qin Qiong, and the others were able to quickly establish themselves in the capital, and most of the credit went to Qin He. For this matter, Qin He had contributed both money and effort. He had even used his connections to buy 2 mansions in Nanmu Alley. Otherwise, the Han family and the Qin family wouldn't be living in such a prestigious place like Nanmu Alley. They would be living in some remote and desolate place at the edge of the city. It was natural for Qin He to help Qin Qiong, but he helped Han Chao because of Qin Qiong's face, or because Han Chao was the future in-law of the Qin family. If not, why would he go through so much trouble to help a stranger? Han Chao did not have any relatives in the capital. Although he had some assets in a place like Zhaodu, where crooks mixed with the honest folk, his assets were not enough. When Qin He brought up the matter of marriage, Han Chao immediately smiled and said, "That's right. Originally, we wanted to wait for nephew Qin to finish participating in the Young Masters tournament before the two of them could get married. However, there was an accident later on, so we delayed the wedding. Now that we have settled down in the capital, after discussing with Brother Qin, we decided to let the two of them get married next month." Although Lin Yun was Lin Feng's younger brother, he wasn't Lin Feng himself. Moreover, in Han Chao's view, although Lin Feng had unlimited potential, he didn't have any real power at the moment. He could only rely on the royal family's power to intimidate others. As for what the future held, it was still uncertain. After all, the future was full of variables. Who knew if Lin Feng could become a 6-star blacksmith or not? Who would bear the risk? In comparison, the Qin family's power was real, and it was the most beneficial to the Han family. Therefore, in Han Chao's eyes, Qin Ku was the son-in-law he liked the most. That's great. Qin he nodded in satisfaction. Qin Ku is so obsessed with blacksmithing that he almost forgot his own name. It's time to find someone to discipline him. Qin Qiong frowned and said, "This kid is too stubborn." Especially after participating in the young master's tournament, he became even more eccentric. He doesn't even listen to my words. As for the marriage that I arranged for him this time, he was also quite resistant. However, it's his parents' order and the matchmaker's words. How can he make the decision on his own? Speaking of this matter, a trace of helplessness flashed across Han Chao's face. Nephew Qin is a talented man with unlimited potential. However, this little girl of mine doesn't know what's good for her. I've been trying to persuade her for a long time, but she hasn't changed at all. Han Chao sighed. Perhaps only after the two of them get married and spend time with Nephew Qin will she understand how good Nephew Qin is. Brother Han, you're too polite. Your daughter is a peerless beauty and a hero among women. To be able to marry your daughter is a son of a dog's fortune. Qin Qiong said. Although he had only met Han Weiwei once, Han Weiwei's appearance was delicate and pretty, and her cultivation talent was not bad. What was even rarer was that he had a very deep friendship with Han Chao. Naturally, he hoped that they could become in-laws and become even closer. In my opinion, only after they spend some time together will they understand how good each other is. Qin Qiong looked at Han Chao with a smile. Han Chao also smiled. Brother Qin and I share the same view. Babao Street. In the midst of the crowd, 4 unremarkable figures slowly walked over. After the few of them inquired about the location of Nanmu Alley, they walked straight towards it. Not long after, the few of them walked through the spacious entrance of Nanmu Alley. Han Residence, the leader of the group, a young man, muttered softly. His gaze swept across the plaque above the entrance of the residence as they walked past. When he reached a place, he stopped and looked at the plaque above the entrance of the residence. He smiled faintly. This is the place. Coincidentally, the opposite side of the residence was the Qin residence. Stop. The 2 guards at the entrance of the Han residence stopped the 4 of them outside. Who are you? This is a private place, no trespassing. The young man said faintly, Please help me pass the message. Just say that Jianglong County's Lin Feng is here to visit. One of the guards said, Wait here for a moment. I'll inform Master Han. Once Master Han agrees, you may enter. You stand guard here first and prevent anyone from entering. I'll go in and inform Master Han. The guard said to his companion. His companion nodded and said, Go. I alone am enough here. At this moment, a voice with a trace of uncertainty came from behind Lin Feng. Mr. Lin? Lin Feng turned his head suspiciously and couldn't help but feel happy. He actually saw an acquaintance here. So it really is you, Mr. Lin. The person was instantly overjoyed. He quickly walked over and said respectfully, Mr. Lin, long time no see. Lin Feng smiled. Qin Ku, you also live here? He suddenly remembered that the residence opposite seemed to be the Qin residence. He couldn't help but ask, You live in that residence opposite? Yes, the mansion across the street was bought by my uncle. Qin Ku didn't say much on this topic. He asked curiously, Mr. Lin also knows Uncle Han? Uncle Han? Lin Feng was startled. Then he said, Yes, there's something I want to talk to him about. Qin Ku didn't ask what it was and directly suggested, It just so happens that my father is also inside. I'm going to go in and see him. Mr. Lin, why don't you come with me? All right. Lin Feng didn't refuse. When the guard saw that it was Qin Ku, he naturally didn't stop him. And since Lin Feng and the others knew Qin Ku, they didn't have the guts to stop him. At this time, Qin Qiong and Qin He hadn't left yet. The 3 of them were deep in conversation in the hall. They completely didn't notice that 5 people were slowly walking over from the opposite side. P.S. The second update is here. There will be an explosive update on the 6th of this month. Everyone, are you ready? Requesting monthly votes. My novel Refining Frenzy will have more fresh content on the official WeChat platform. At the same time, there will be a 100% chance of a lucky draw for everyone. Open WeChat now, click the plus sign at the top right and add friend. Search for the public account Kdred and follow it. Hurry up. Chapter 244. Just as the few of them were chatting happily, a voice came from outside the hall. Excuse me for disturbing you. Hearing this voice, the few of them frowned and turned to look at the source of the voice. No one would be too happy to be interrupted while they were having a pleasant conversation. However, when he saw who it was, Han Chao frowned. A trace of surprise appeared in Qin Qiong's eyes. There weren't many people, only 5 of them. One of them was Qin Ku and the other 4 were led by a young man they were very familiar with, Lin Feng. Father, Qin Ku called out calmly. Recently, because of the strange marriage, his relationship with Qin Qiong had dropped to a freezing point. When he saw Qin Qiong, he didn't show the same respect as before. And this time, he came because of this strange marriage. He hoped to explain it to Han Chao and Qin Qiong. However, at this time, Han Chao, Qin Qiong and Qin He were focused on Lin Feng. Qin Qiong quickly stood up and greeted him with a smile, Mr. Lin. Han Chao stood up reluctantly and said in a low voice, Mr. Lin. While Qin He was puzzled, Qin Qiong introduced him. This is Lin Feng, Mr. Lin, who achieved an unprecedented result in the finals of this year's Young Masters tournament. So it's Lin Feng. Qin He suddenly realized. Although he hadn't seen Lin Feng with his own eyes, he had heard of Lin Feng's name countless times. The 7th most talented blacksmith in history. A 20-year-old 5-star blacksmith. He was the first genius to get a perfect score of 500 points in the Master Youth Tournament. Lin Feng received all these titles, making him the idol of countless young people in the state of Zhao. No matter where he went, he would hear people talking about Lin Feng. It would be difficult for him not to know who Lin Feng was. He had long wanted to befriend this person with great potential, but he didn't have the chance in the past. Now that they had coincidentally bumped into each other, he naturally wouldn't neglect him. He chuckled and said, Mr. Lin, I am Qin He, a medium general of the Empire's Ministry of War. Nice to meet you. As the saying goes, one does not slap a smiling face. Lin Feng and Qin He did not have any grudges, so naturally, he would not show any attitude to the other party. Moreover, the other party was a general. Lin Feng always had a good impression of soldiers. Greetings, General Qin. Lin Feng cupped his hands in greeting. Han Chao couldn't help but take a deep breath. He said calmly, I wonder why Mr. Lin is here. As soon as he saw Lin Feng, his good mood immediately disappeared. This Lin Feng, why did he have to come at this time? He stared at Lin Feng and narrowed his eyes. Qin Qiong didn't know about the matter between Lin Feng's brother, Lin Yun, and Han Weiwei. Therefore, his good mood was not affected at all. Instead, he was even happier. He chuckled and said, If Mr. Lin needs any help, just say the word. We will go through fire and water for you. Of course, when ordinary people heard this, they would know that he was just being polite. Qin He added, Mr. Lin, although we may not be able to solve any problems for Mr. Lin, we can still take care of some small matters. If Mr. Lin needs anything, just say it. Lin Feng took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, I came here specifically to ask for Mr. Han's help. Help? Han Chao's face darkened. He snorted in his heart, This Lin Feng, it seems that he still hasn't given up. He sneered, My words carry little weight. I can't even protect myself. As for help, I'm afraid Mr. Lin has found the wrong person. Hearing this, Lin Feng said in a deep voice, But for this matter, other than Mr. Han, no one can help me. Mr. Lin, what do you mean? Qin Xiong looked at Lin Feng in confusion. His eyes were filled with curiosity and anticipation. He really wanted to know what the good thing Lin Feng was talking about was. Just like Qin Xiong, Qin He's gaze fell on Lin Feng. He didn't move and was looking forward to it. Without waiting for Lin Feng to speak, Han Chao suddenly stood up and said, Mr. Lin, I respect you as a genius and have never offended you. I hope Mr. Lin will respect yourself. Hey Brother Han, that's where you're wrong. Qin Xiong acted as a mediator and persuaded, Mr. Lin is our savior. If not for Mr. Lin and Mr. Zhong's help, we would have died in Jingmen City. How can we face Mr. Lin with such an attitude? Lin Feng waved his hand and said, It's fine. He looked at Han Chao with a burning gaze. Mr. Han, that day you asked Qi Ming and President Qi to pass on our words. Lin Feng doesn't dare to forget it. However, Lin Feng didn't come here today to find trouble with you. I came here sincerely for my younger brother, Lin Yun. I hope Mr. Han can help me. As he said this, he actually bowed to Han Chao. Everyone looked at Han Chao with doubts in their hearts. When did Lin Feng and Han Chao cross paths? If they remembered correctly, Lin Feng wasn't familiar with Han Chao. They didn't even speak much, right? However, seeing Lin Feng acting like this, Han Chao's face was incomparably gloomy. Lin Feng, don't go too far. Qin Xiong and Qin He's expressions finally changed. They realized that things weren't as simple as they thought. This Lin Feng seemed to have made a request that Han Chao couldn't accept. Otherwise, when facing a genius like Lin Feng, who was almost certain to become a 6-star weapon refiner in the future, Han Chao wouldn't show such an attitude for no reason. At this time, Qin Xiong said, Brother Han, Mr. Lin, perhaps there is some misunderstanding between the two of you. Why don't you sit down and talk? Why don't you get angry and hurt each other's feelings? Qin Ke looked at Lin Feng in confusion. He really couldn't figure out what, with Lin Feng's ability, could trouble a small county governor like Han Chao. Moreover, Han Chao was no longer a county governor. At most, he could only be considered a slightly wealthier commoner. With the strength of a rank 6 Earth warrior, Lin Feng wouldn't put him in his eyes. Compared to Han Chao and the others, he knew much more about Lin Feng. Too much. Lin Feng clenched his fists and stared at Han Chao. Compared to what Mr. Han did that day, is Lin Feng really going too far? This Han Chao was too shameless. However, for the sake of his younger brother, he still held back and said in a deep voice, Lin Feng came to visit today just for Lin Yun's matter. Again, I hope Mr. Han can help me. Han Chao frowned and couldn't help but think again. Lin Feng is a 5-star refiner with great potential. It is said that his talent is the 7th in history. In the future, he will definitely become a 6-star refiner. But he is not Lin Yun. Lin Yun is just a slightly eye-catching genius in a small Qinfeng college. Compared with Lin Feng, Lin Yun really can't compare. Not to mention in the huge imperial capital, even in the original Jianglong County, Lin Yun is not a genius. Han Chao's expression was uncertain. Qin Ku is a 4-star refiner. Although the Qin family also suffered a devastating blow, a skinny mammoth is still bigger than a horse. Their power in the imperial capital is still not to be underestimated. And Qin Ku is the only son of Qin Xiong. In the future, the Qin family will definitely fall into the hands of Qin Ku. Qin Ku will be the master of the Qin family. Slowly, the decision in his heart became more and more firm. I don't believe that this Lin Feng dares to risk universal condemnation and take Wei Wei away by force. Han Chao stared coldly at Lin Feng as his thoughts churned. Moreover, although he has unlimited potential, it is only potential. Before he really grows up, how many people are willing to work for him? But Qin He of the Qin family is different. He has been in the imperial capital for many years and his power is stable. If they fight head-on, Lin Feng will definitely not be his match. After thinking it through, Han Chao became even more confident. He said with incomparable certainty, "No matter what, I will not change my mind." Outsiders did not know what kind of riddle the two of them were playing. However, Qin Ku and the unfettered supremacy behind Lin Feng were secretly worried for Han Chao when they saw how Han Chao treated Lin Feng. Even now, Han Chao was still being stubborn. Lin Feng clenched his fists even tighter. He had already swallowed his anger time and time again, but this Han Chao was still so stubborn. How could he not be angry? Lin Feng took a step forward and said in an incomparably domineering manner, "Then what if I insist on changing your mind? Mr. Lin." Qin Ku was shocked. Mr. Lin. Qin Qiong and Qin He both frowned. Han Chao was so angry that he laughed. "Ha, ha. Lin Feng, I respect you as a genius and we are indebted to you. That's why I've been tolerating you time and time again. Don't think that I'm afraid of you. That's right. You are a 5-star blacksmith and a genius. Even His Majesty thinks highly of you. However, Wei Wei is my daughter. Since ancient times, she has always been married to your younger brother. If I don't agree to her marrying your younger brother, she will definitely not marry him. If you want to snatch her by force, do you think you can shut the mouths of the people in the world?" Since they had already shed all pretenses of cordiality, he was no longer polite to Lin Feng. He mocked, "Do you really think that His Majesty will ruin the reputation of the imperial family for you?" He looked deeply at Lin Feng and said in a lecturing tone, "Remember, you are just a genius. That's all." These words of his also allowed Qin Qiong and Qin He to understand the whole story. The two of them reacted and looked at Lin Feng with ugly expressions. Their eyes were filled with anger. Although Han Weiwei and Qin Ku were not yet married, they had already set a marriage contract and set a time for the wedding. Today, Lin Feng's actions were undoubtedly slapping them in the face. If this were to spread out, how would the people of the world view their Qin family? This matter concerned the reputation of the Qin family. How could they remain calm? Qin Ku looked at Lin Feng in astonishment. He never would have thought that Lin Feng came here because of the fiancée that his father had forcibly arranged for him. Ha, ha. Lin Feng laughed loudly. He had nowhere to vent his anger. That's all. Han Chao was enraged. "Lin Feng, don't you dare be so presumptuous." Qin He's face was ashen. "Mr. Lin, the Han family's daughter, has already set a marriage contract with my nephew. Although they haven't married yet, she is already considered a member of my Qin family. Aren't you going a bit too far by doing this?" He threatened. "Although my Qin family cannot be compared to the aristocratic families of the imperial capital, the reputation of the Qin family is not something that anyone can touch. Don't treat the Qin family as a soft persimmon that you can pinch as you please." Presumptuous? Was Lin Feng really being presumptuous? P.S. Modified version. Chapter 245. While Han Chao and the Qin family resented Lin Feng greatly, Lin Feng's resentment towards Han Chao had never been small. Back then, Han Chao had used his position as the county governor to humiliate and threaten him and his brother. Now, he had come to visit with a new identity. He had put aside his past grudges and sincerely asked for help. However, this Han Chao was still stubborn and still looked down on him and his brother. Who should he vent his anger on? Perhaps the Qin family would lose face because of this, but he couldn't give up his brother's happiness for the Qin family, right? Of course, Lin Feng was biased towards his brother. An elder brother was like a father. He had the responsibility and obligation to take care of Lin Yun. A trace of apology flashed in his eyes, but his tone was still firm. He said, "This matter may be unfair to the Qin family, but you shouldn't blame me, but Lord Han Chao." Lin Feng, don't slander us." Han Chao was furious. "Isn't it? Lin Feng looked at Han Chao calmly and said aggressively, Miss Han Weiwei and my brother Lin Yun were in love with each other. It was you who broke them apart and forced Miss Han to marry someone else. If not, how could today's situation be caused? Tell me, shouldn't you be blamed? Han Chao was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He pointed at Lin Feng. You, he flicked his sleeves and said coldly, Wei Wei is young and doesn't know how to judge people. That's why that Lin Yun brat. He snorted. As Wei Wei's father, is it wrong for me to find someone worthy of her lifelong commitment? Qin Xiong didn't care too much at this time. He said, Mr. Lin, please forgive me for saying this. I admit that Mr. Lin is indeed a genius and his future is limitless, but your brother may not be so. Son of a dog may not be as good as Mr. Lin, but compared to your brother, son of a dog may be a better choice. You're wrong. Lin Feng said in a deep voice. First, Lin Yun and Miss Han are in love with each other. They should make their own decisions about their marriage. You have no right to interfere. Second, do you really think that Lin Yun's talent is not good enough? Speaking of this, he smiled coldly. If an 18-year-old 7th-rank Earth warrior genius can't enter your eyes, I don't know what kind of genius in the world can enter your eyes. Hearing this, everyone present was stunned. Then Han Chao laughed. Lin Feng, your refining ability is already very good, but I didn't expect your bragging ability to be even better. I have already sent someone to investigate Lin Yun's talent. Last year, he was just a little guy who was half a step into the 3rd-rank Earth Warrior. This year, he is a 7th-rank Earth Warrior? This joke is not funny at all. Believe it or not, it's up to you. Lin Feng was not interested in arguing with him. He looked at Han Chao and said in a deep voice, Again, do you really want to interfere in the matter between Lin Yun and Miss Han? Lin Feng, do you really think there is no one in my Qin family? Qin Xiong said angrily. Lin Feng ignored him, but his eyes remained motionless, staring at Han Chao. Han Chao said indifferently, If I insist on interfering, then what? How about it? Lin Feng immediately burst out laughing. His unbridled laughter caused the faces of the people present to turn extremely ugly. After his laughter faded, their faces instantly turned cold. If you want to interfere, then I can naturally interfere too. Are you the only one allowed to interfere and I can't? You! Han Chao pointed at Lin Feng, trembling with anger. Impudent! Impudent! Qin he shouted at almost the same time. He completely ignored Qin Ku, who was pulling at the corner of his clothes, and said coldly, Lin Feng, if you really want to be enemies with my Qin family will accompany you to the end. He looked at Qin he coldly. Do you want to suppress me with your power? Qin he said indifferently, think what you want. In short, the daughter of the Han family must enter my Qin family. Lin Feng stared at Qin he. After a long time, he turned to look at Qin Ku and asked, Brother Qin, if I'm not wrong, you are the Prince of Qin that Lord Han mentioned about being engaged to Miss Han, right? Qin Ku was instantly embarrassed. He said uneasily, Mr. Lin, I have always been against this. In fact, I came here today to clarify in front of Uncle Han and my father that Miss Han is indeed an extraordinary woman, but she is not the type that Qin Ku likes. I believe that Miss Han thinks so too. Marriages between aristocratic families often lead to many tragedies. I have seen many such examples, and I don't want to repeat such tragedies. As he spoke, he turned to look at Han Chao and said, Uncle Han, thank you for thinking so highly of this junior. This junior is very honored, but this junior really can't convince himself to marry a woman who has nothing in common with me. Even if this woman is 1,000 times more outstanding, this junior will still make this decision. He said these words with great sincerity and strength. It was obvious that he had made up his mind. Han Chao held his breath. He was speechless. Impudent! Qin Xiong saw this and was instantly enraged. unfilial son, how can marriage be decided by you? Qin He also frowned. It was obvious that he was extremely dissatisfied with Qin Ku's words. Qin Ku was fearless. He looked at Qin Xiong and said seriously, Father, I am not only doing this for my own good, but also for your own good. For our own good? It would be strange if Qin Xiong believed him. He looked at Qin Ku and said calmly, Qin Ku, I know that you and Lin Feng participated in the young master's competition together and formed a friendship. However, you have to know that this matter concerns the reputation of the Qin family. If I take half a step back today, the Qin family will not be able to face the world in the future. The glory that the Qin family has been protecting for generations will also be destroyed in my hands. He could not take this step back. Qin Ku was anxious. He knelt down and said, Father, please listen to my advice. He wanted to say, you must not offend Lin Feng. Otherwise, not to mention glory, even the Qin family will not be able to protect themselves. Who was Lin Feng? Others might not know, but how could he not know? He was a top-notch refiner who could refine a 3-mark spiritual armor. A 7th-rank earth magician. Most importantly, Lin Feng was only 20 years old. Could the Qin family afford to offend such a person? The more he thought about this, the more Qin Ku's heart palpitated. The more he wanted to change Qin Xiong and Qin He's mind. Was glory more important or the Qin family? Don't worry, brother Qin, Lin Feng said in a low voice. Although I am not a gentleman, I will not harm the innocent. Moreover, you and I have been friends for a while. Therefore, I will not touch the Qin family. Qin He was so angry that he laughed. What a joke! Do you really think that the Qin family is a soft persimmon that anyone can bully? If you want to, go ahead and try. Lin Feng frowned and took a deep breath. I said just now that I will not touch the Qin family. However, his eyes flashed with a sharp light. It's still necessary to intimidate them. He looked at Qin He, Han Chao, and the others and said, You are not the only one who knows how to use power to oppress others. I know it too. The next moment, he transmitted his voice to the 3 Supremes. The Carefree Supremes, Fluttering Snow Supremes, and Star Supremes looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Lin Feng is asking us to bully a group of 6th, 7th, and 8th level little fellows? They suddenly felt that they had boarded a pirate ship. As high-level Supremes, even if they were to deal with early-stage Supremes, it would be considered bullying. Dealing with 9th-level Supremes would be an insult to them. But now Lin Feng was asking them to deal with a group of 6th and 8th level little fellows. It was like an adult bullying a child, like using a butcher's knife to kill a pig, in short, how could they endure this? However, since Lin Feng had said so, what else could they do? The Carefree Supreme sighed and shook his head with a bitter smile. Looks like my reputation in this life will be ruined by Lin Feng sooner or later. He looked at Han Chao and the other 2 and was also quite dissatisfied. He could not help but snort coldly. This soft snort rumbled in the ears of Han Chao, Qin Xiong, and Qin He. It was like thunder in the sky, deafening and causing pain in their eardrums. Han Chao, Qin Xiong, Qin He, and Qin Ku, as well as all the servants and guards in the Han residence, were all shocked. However, before they could react, an extremely terrifying aura that they had never experienced before surged out violently with the unfettered exalt at its center. Rumble! This aura was like a huge wave in the sea, spreading out in all directions with the momentum to topple mountains and overturn seas. In an instant, this extremely terrifying aura enveloped the entire city of Zhao. Zhao Ying Pavilion, Chaoyang Palace, Weapon Refining Sect, Craftsman's Guild. Within the city of Zhao, every inch of it was enveloped by this terrifying aura. At this moment, in many places within the capital of Zhao, the faces of all the Supreme Being level old monsters changed. This is the aura of the Carefree Supremes. In an instant, they determined the identity of the owner of this aura. Almost inaudible voices rang out everywhere, and shocked expressions appeared on these people's faces. Who dares to provoke the carefree supremes? As expected of a senior who ascended to high level 1,000 years ago. He's indeed terrifying. Just this aura alone is enough to make one unable to resist. Although the carefree supremes, fluttering snow supremes, and star supremes are all high-level supremes, in terms of strength, the carefree supremes are definitely above the other two. He's a terrifying existence who became famous 1,000 years ago. If someone provokes the carefree supremes, even fluttering snow supremes and star supremes can't protect the other party. Hasn't the carefree supremes always been by Mr. Lin's side? Could it be that someone provoked Mr. Lin and caused the carefree supremes to take action? It can't be wrong. That must be it. When the supremes figured this out, their eyes widened. Almost at the same time, all the supremes and even some Stage 9 experts immediately stood up and rushed toward the source of the aura as fast as they could. Since Mr. Lin is in trouble, why don't we go and take a look? Even if we can't help much, it's good to be on good terms with him. Therefore, the Supremes and Stage 9 experts who had yet to leave the city of Zhao set off from different places, but all of them spontaneously converged toward the same place. Whoosh! In the sky, one could see many figures rising abruptly not long after that terrifying aura descended. Then, they turned into streams of light and swept past in an instant, disappearing in a flash. On the many roofs, there were also figures leaping and leaping. In a few breaths' time, they had already reached the end of everyone's vision. They had a common destination, Babeo Street, Nanmo Lane. At this moment, a large number of Supremes and Stage 9 experts gathered. P.S. Modified version. Chapter 246. P.S. I want to hear more of your voices and receive more of your suggestions. Now search for the WeChat public account Kdred and follow it. Give more support to the refining frenzy. Although the capital of Zhao was big, it was nothing to a sovereign. In about 5 or 6 breaths of time, the closest sovereign had already fallen from the sky. In the blink of an eye, he had entered the Han residence. After a long or short period of time, the sovereigns from all over the capital of Zhao had also rushed here. Although the Stage 9 powerhouses were a little slower, it was only relative to the sovereigns. In fact, a group of Stage 9 sovereigns only spent a few dozen breaths of time to arrive outside Nanmu Alley. Stop! Although the guards of the Han residence were frightened by the terrifying aura that erupted one after another, seeing that a group of strangers wanted to break into the residence, they immediately blocked the path of the group of people. Get out of the way! A cold snort came out from the nose of an old man. This snort entered the ears of the guards, but it was like a clap of thunder, rumbling and rumbling. The faces of the two guards suddenly changed at the same time. Super powerhouses! They didn't know how powerful the group of people in front of them were, but just the simple snort of the old man was enough to let them know that this group of people was at least a Stage 7 powerhouse. They were only Stage 4 Earth warriors. Facing a group of experts who were suspected to be Stage 7 powerhouses, they naturally trembled in fear. Without any hesitation, they decisively stepped aside and let the group of people enter the residence. They were only guards of the Han residence, not servants of the Han residence. In front of a group of super powerhouses who were suspected to be Stage 7 Earth warriors, they naturally chose to obediently step aside. Even if they didn't step aside with their Stage 4 strength, how could they block these super powerhouses? So many experts. They gulped inwardly and couldn't help but worry for Han Chao. What kind of deity did Lord Han provoke? Why did he summon so many experts? As the saying goes, the ignorant are fearless. They were just 4th-order Earth warriors, their knowledge was shallow, and they had never seen any great figures. In their eyes, 6th-order and 7th-order were great figures, 8th Order were supermasters, and 9th Order were like gods. Therefore, they naturally regarded this group of people as 7th Order masters. Even if they weren't 7th Order masters, at most 8th Order masters, they didn't think that 9th Order masters would come together. If he let them know that the people they stopped just now were a group of 9th stage powerhouses, he wondered what kind of expression they would have. Perhaps they would still have lingering fears, or perhaps they would be proud of it. We are warriors who once stopped a group of 9th stage powerhouses. 2 guards stood on either side as a group of 9th stage powerhouses passed through the gate and entered the mansion. However, this was only the first batch. Soon, in the line of sight of the guards, another group of people wearing gorgeous clothes and exuding boundless majesty quickly walked over from afar. This time, the 2 guards learned their lesson. They knew that these people were all great figures, so they let them pass without saying anything. They couldn't stop these great figures, nor did they dare to stop them. It was better to let Lord Han Chao deal with them personally. Inside the mansion, Han Chao, Qin Xiong, and Qin He's expressions changed greatly. Their gazes instantly locked onto Unfettered Sovereign, Fluttering Snow Sovereign, and Star Sovereign. This terrifying aura, which seemed to be able to squeeze them to death in an instant, erupted from these 3 people. 9th stage powerhouses. Almost instantly, this phrase appeared in the minds of the 3 people. As for the level above, it was difficult for them to guess with their knowledge. This was because the strongest expert they had ever seen in their lives didn't surpass the 9th stage. Just as they were in shock, many unfamiliar and uninvited guests suddenly appeared outside the hall. One by one, they descended from the sky and landed lightly on the ground, directly arriving outside the hall. 1, 2, 3, 4. In the short time it took to brew a cup of tea, there were at least 20 experts outside. However, these experts' auras were extremely restrained. Unless one's strength had reached their level, or if they released their auras on their own accord, outsiders wouldn't be able to sense their strength at all. Although they didn't know their strength, Han Chao and the other 2 could guess that these people's cultivations were probably not lower than the 8th stage. 9th stage, 8th stage. The 3 people looked at the group of experts and Unfettered Sovereign's group outside, their faces instantly turning pale. More and more experts were still arriving, and the number of people outside was increasing as if there was no end to them. Every person who arrived stimulated the nerves of the 3 people, causing them to feel suffocated. Outside the hall, a large group of experts had surrounded them, and Han Chao and the other 2 were almost certain that these experts were all 8th stage and 9th stage powerhouses. Han Chao's face was extremely ugly. Lin Feng, what is the meaning of this? Lin Feng looked at Han Chao and said seriously, "That day, Lord Han used the strength of the 6th stage and the power of the entire county governor's mansion to threaten me and Lin Yun, forcing the 2 of us to submit. If it weren't for Qingfeng College's dean, Senior Xie, who took us in, I'm afraid the 2 of us brothers would have already been beheaded. Even if we weren't harmed by the Lotus mercenary group, we would have been killed by you, Lord Han. Lord Han, when you did that day, did you consider the feelings of us 2 brothers? With Han Chao's temperament, if it weren't for President Qi Ming and Xie Qiufeng from Qingfeng College helping Lin Feng and the other 2, he would have most likely found Han Chao to persecute them. However, he could endure all of this. For Lin Yun, he could treat it as if nothing had happened. But what he couldn't tolerate was that Han Chao was still so stubborn, and Qin He was even trying to use the Qin family's power to threaten him. Threaten? If he was still the Lin Feng from Jianglong County, perhaps he would really be afraid of Qin He's threats. In the end, the one who would be chased out of the house would be him, and the one who would be humiliated would also be him. But a scholar who had been away for 3 days had to be looked at with new eyes. The Lin Feng of today was no longer an ignorant person, and was no longer the same as before. That Qin He was trying to use the Qin family's power to suppress him, but he had found the wrong target. Han Chao's face was ashen, and he snorted coldly. So you're here today to take revenge on me? Hearing this, Lin Feng shook his head and said, I've said before, the grudges of that day, I can let bygones be bygones, and treat it as if nothing had happened. Today, I'm here with sincerity to propose marriage for my younger brother. He said in a low voice, I haven't hurt a single soldier of the Han family, and I haven't humiliated the Han family in the slightest. From the beginning to the end, my attitude has been sincere. But Lord Han, why do you keep acting this way? I've said that I won't agree, and that means I won't agree. Even if you want to go to the heavens, I will definitely not agree. Han Chao looked coldly at Lin Feng. Although I don't know where you got these 9th level and 8th level experts, don't think that I, Han Chao, will submit to you. It's still the same words, Lin Yun, that brat wants to marry my daughter? Dream on. If you have the ability, just kill me directly. After killing me, let's see if Wei Wei will marry that brat Lin Yun, and marry the younger brother of the enemy who killed her father. When he finished speaking, his tone actually carried a trace of mockery and pride. Obviously, he was sure that Lin Feng wouldn't dare to touch him. 9th level and 8th level experts? When he said this, the expressions of Unfettered Sovereign, Fluttering Snow Sovereign, and Star Sovereign instantly became strange. The Supremes and 9th level experts outside the hall also opened their mouths, but not a single word came out. A dignified supremacy was treated as a 9th level expert. A dignified supremacy, a 9th level expert, was treated as a 8th level expert. What else could they say? Scold Han Chao for being ignorant. Coincidentally, among the group of 9th level experts, there was an old man who seemed to be familiar with Qin He. Seeing that Qin He was actually involved in this matter, the old man immediately felt a headache. He looked around at the Supremes around him, gritted his teeth, and walked into the hall with courage. He directly shouted to Qin He, Qin He. Qin He immediately stood up and looked at the person in shock. Then, he saluted, Old General. This 9th level Earth Warrior was an old general of the Berserker Corps who had retired, Gan Luo. Before he retired, Gan Luo was a senior general of the Ministry of War, also known as the General of War. His position was even higher than General Yu Zhen's. He could be said to be the #1 person in the Ministry of War. It was only when Gan Luo retired and left his position that Yu Zhen was promoted and replaced Gan Luo's position, becoming the #1 person in the Ministry of War. Gan Luo's influence in the military was something that even Yu Zhen couldn't compare to. Old General, why are you here too? Qin He glanced at Lin Feng and immediately became nervous. Alas, Qin He, I didn't expect that the person who offended Mr. Lin would be you. Gan Luo laughed bitterly, then frowned and looked at Han Chao. Your friend has a bad temper. Qin He's heart suddenly jumped, and he hurriedly said, Old General, Brother Han was just too angry just now, so his words were too extreme. Please forgive him. Gan Luo glared at him and said in a low voice, You think I'm angry at you? Without waiting for Qin He to speak, he said, I'm saving you. Why do you say that, Old General? Qin He said in a low voice, This Lin Feng wants to snatch my Qin clan's daughter-in-law and destroy my Qin clan's prestige. Should the Qin clan swallow this insult? He looked at Gan Luo sincerely, Old General, although you've resigned, you'll always be our old general. Don't tell me you want to watch us be humiliated? Gan Luo laughed bitterly. It's not that I don't want to help you, but I'm powerless. Moreover, the Qin clan was innocent, but Han Chao wasn't. Even if he had the ability, he could only protect the Qin clan and not Han Chao. Powerless? Qin He's eyes widened. Old General, with your strength and status, how can you be powerless? One must know that Gan Luo wasn't just a Stage 9 powerhouse. He was also on good terms with many Stage 9 powerhouses. Even the Imperial tutor Zhong Wei had to give Gan Luo some face. Hearing this, Gan Luo sighed. Qin He, do you really think that these 3 seniors are just stage 9 powerhouses? Do you really think that those seniors outside are all stage 8 powerhouses? Aren't they? Qin He frowned. You're wrong. Gan Luo turned his head to look at the group of Supremes and said slowly, inside and outside the hall, these seniors are all Supremes. Supremes. These 4 words instantly exploded in the minds of Qin He, Qin Qiong, Qin Ku, Han Chao, and the others, causing their minds to go blank and their expressions to freeze. There was only shock on their faces. They looked at unfettered Supremes and the others, their eyes wide open and their hearts trembling. They are Supremes. P.S. First update. Requesting monthly votes. The novel Refining Frenzy will have more new content on the official WeChat platform. At the same time, there's a 100% chance of a lucky draw for everyone. Open WeChat now, click on the plus sign at the top right to add friend, search for the public account Kdred and follow it. Hurry up! Chapter 247. P.S. I want to hear more of your voices and receive more of your suggestions. Search for the official account Kdred on WeChat and follow it. Give more support to Weapon Refining Frenzy. Even an ordinary 9th stage powerhouse was an existence they could only look up to, let alone a supreme being. However, in front of a supreme being, the 9th stage powerhouses they usually revered like gods could only lower their noble heads and bow their heads. They didn't dare to disobey. Even Zhong Wei, who was known as the number 1 person below the supreme being, had to obediently greet a supreme being. Although the entire world was controlled by a few royal families, it was actually controlled by many supreme beings. Today, a supreme being had actually come to the small Han residence. Such a legendary existence had actually come to the Han residence. A single supreme being was enough to scare them out of their wits. A group of supreme beings almost suffocated them. Their hearts were under a formless, terrifying pressure, as if they would explode at any time. Supreme being, supreme being. These were the only words in their minds, and they became absent-minded. Gan Luo didn't look at them anymore. Instead, he bowed to the group of supreme beings and said, I didn't get your permission and revealed your identities. Please forgive me. Unfettered supreme being waved his hand and said, if we were to blame you for such a small matter, wouldn't we become the laughingstock of the world? Thank you, senior. Gan Luo heaved a sigh of relief. Then, Gan Luo looked at Lin Feng and said respectfully, Mr. Lin, the Qin family is indeed in the wrong. However, it was only a moment of impulse. I hope Mr. Lin will be magnanimous and forgive them this time. He glanced at Qin He and the others and sighed inwardly. Qin He, this is all I can help you with. I don't have the right to influence Mr. Lin's decision. Lin Feng looked at Gan Luo and said solemnly, Senior, don't worry. Speaking of which, I am also in the wrong. The Qin family was innocently implicated, which is why they were so extreme. I can completely understand. Moreover, I have a relationship with Brother Qin before. It's reasonable that I won't touch the Qin family. These words made Qin He and the others heave a sigh of relief. At this point, they had already seen the situation clearly and understood Lin Feng's ability. In the past, they thought that Lin Feng was relying on the royal family's high regard for his talent, which was why he could borrow the strength of a 9th stage powerhouse to intimidate others. Although they were wary of such people, they were not afraid. After all, Lin Feng could borrow the strength of a Type 9 powerhouse, and Qin He could also ask for the help of a Type 9 powerhouse. But at this moment, they understood that Lin Feng wasn't terrifying because of his potential or natural talent, and it was because of himself. With so many Supreme Being powerhouses standing up for Lin Feng, and even 9th Order powerhouses being so respectful to Lin Feng, If one were to say that these people only valued his talent, they would definitely not believe it. If they still didn't understand how terrifying Lin Feng was by now, then they would really be hopeless. Qin He sucked in a deep breath and respectfully said, "Mr. Lin, I was too rash with my words and offended you. Please forgive me." Qin Qiong immediately chimed in, "Please forgive us, Mr. Lin." Although it was hard to believe, the truth was right in front of them. They had no choice but to believe it. Lord Qin and Lord Qin. Lin Feng looked at the two of them and said solemnly, "I said just now that this matter isn't your fault. Strictly speaking, I am the one who has let you down." He smiled bitterly and sighed. "Regarding this matter, I, Lin Feng, will owe your Qin clan a favor. If—" He paused for a moment. "If I am still in the Imperial City in a few months, and you encounter any trouble, you can come and find me. As long as I can do it, I will definitely help you." Before the Qin clan members could react, the surrounding supreme beings couldn't help but become restless. Lin Feng's favor, this was Lin Feng's favor. They looked at the Qin clan enviously. These little fellows, I don't know what kind of luck they have to get Lin Feng's favor so easily. How much was the favor of a 21-year-old top-notch weapon refiner, who could refine a 3-pattern spirit armor worth? If possible, they would rather give up the 3-pattern spirit armor and get Lin Feng's favor. Compared to the 3-pattern spirit armor, Lin Feng's favor was definitely more valuable. Feeling the envious gazes of the supreme beings, the 3 Qin clan members were puzzled and puzzled. What exactly happened to Lin Feng? Not only could he summon so many legendary supreme beings, but even these supreme beings are so envious of his promise. Is his favor really worth so much? Gan Luo immediately became anxious for the 3. "Why aren't you thanking Mr. Lin?" "Ah, thank you, Mr. Lin." After Gan Luo's reminder, they reacted and hurriedly thanked him. Although they didn't know how valuable Lin Feng's favor was, from the expressions of Gan Luo and the other supreme beings, it seemed to be a little amazing. Lin Feng waved his hand and looked at Han Chao again. At this moment, not only Lin Feng, but also Qin Qiong, Qin He, Qin Ku, Gan Luo, unfettered supreme being, as well as all the supreme beings and level 9 experts outside the hall, all looked at Han Chao. The gazes of the supreme beings and level 9 experts were like 1,000 pounds of force, pressuring Han Chao to the point where he couldn't breathe. His gaze towards Lin Feng also carried a trace of fear and dread. Even though he was sure that Lin Feng wouldn't dare to hurt him, any of the experts present could smash him into pieces with a slap, and a breath could cause him to die without a burial place. If these experts couldn't hold back and Lin Feng couldn't stop them in time, then wouldn't he really have died in vain? At this moment, a sense of fear also arose in his heart. But at the same time, he resented Lin Feng even more. Everyone thought that Lin Feng would deal a fatal blow to Han Chao. After all, according to Lin Feng, Han Chao seemed to have prepared to send people to deal with the Lin brothers, and had even threatened them. However, he was stopped by Qi Ming, and with Xie Qiufeng's protection, Han Chao didn't succeed. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't let go of such a grudge easily. Moreover, Han Chao was certain that Lin Feng wouldn't dare to touch him, so he was especially arrogant. Even the surrounding experts couldn't bear to look at that face of his, let alone Lin Feng himself. However, everyone guessed wrong. Lin Feng walked in front of Han Chao, looked straight at him, and said as sincerely as possible, "Lord Han Chao, I hope that you can reconsider the matter of Lin Yun and Han Weiwei. As long as you agree, I'm willing to give you a big gift as a betrothal gift. I won't mistreat the Han family." Hearing this, unfettered supremacy, fluttering snow supremacy, and star supremacy were stunned. If they remembered correctly, Lin Feng should still have 2 pieces of 3-pattern spirit armor. In that case, the big gift that Lin Feng was talking about was most likely these 2 pieces of 3-pattern spirit armor, or one of them. 2 pieces of high-quality 3-pattern spirit armor. The 3 of them secretly sucked in a breath of cold air. This Lin Feng is really generous. Even the children of supreme supremacies wouldn't be willing to take out 3-patterned spirit armor as a betrothal gift when they got married. But Lin Feng, not only did he take out 3-patterned spirit armor, but it was also a high-quality 3-patterned spirit armor. It was even possible that there were 2 of them. Although the supreme supremacies outside didn't know what Lin Feng's big gift was, they were sure that with Lin Feng's current status and ability, since he said that it was a big gift, it couldn't be bad. Moreover, if the betrothal gift was too bad, he would naturally lose face. They looked at Han Chao with envy in their hearts. Why didn't we have such a good daughter? Unexpectedly, Han Chao was unbelievably stubborn. Even in front of so many supreme supremacies and level 9 powerhouses, he still said coldly, "Impossible. Don't think that you can make me change my mind just because you force the Qin family to leave. Let me tell you, even if you kill me today, I'll still say the same thing. My daughter will never marry that brat Lin Yun. Even if she doesn't marry for the rest of her life, she will never marry your brother. Just give up on that idea." As soon as he said that, all the supreme supremacies and level 9 powerhouses inside and outside the hall frowned. Even Qin Xiong and Qin He also frowned and looked at Han Chao. They never thought that Han Chao would be so stubborn. The fault was originally on him. Moreover, Lin Feng was so sincere and lowered his head again and again, but he still made things difficult for Lin Feng. It was really too much. "Brother Han," Qin Xiong wanted to persuade him. But unexpectedly, Han Chao directly waved his hand and interrupted him. "Brother Qin, you have your choice, I have mine too. If you continue to persuade me, then we can't even be friends anymore." Qin Xiong opened his mouth and finally swallowed the words that were at the tip of his tongue. He looked at Han Chao with a complicated expression. In a daze, he seemed to have seen the time when they studied together in the academy, went to the demon beast forest to train together, and formed a small mercenary team together. They were on the brink of life and death many times, but they never left each other. But now, he had changed, and so had Han Chao. He had become a stranger, and so had Han Chao. They were no longer the 2 young and hot-blooded fellows from back then. Things had become unprecedentedly tricky. Han Chao's attitude was unexpectedly resolute. Even if Lin Feng used all his tricks, he still couldn't shake his determination. Huff! Lin Feng took a deep breath and looked at Han Chao. He said, "Lord Han, may I ask, has Lin Feng offended you in any way during this visit?" "No," Han Chao said dispassionately. "Does Miss Han prefer my brother Lin Yun or Qin Ku?" Lin Feng asked. "Lin Yun, of course," Han Chao still said dispassionately. "Then why is Lord Han so insistent? So much so that you don't even care about your daughter's happiness?" Lin Feng pursued. Han Chao sneered. "Happiness? She can obtain happiness with Lin Yun?" Lin Feng frowned and said, "What makes you think that they can't obtain happiness together?" Han Chao said dispassionately, "I think that if you can't have it, you can't have it. I don't need a reason." At this moment, Lin Feng could no longer control his emotions. Ha ha ha. He was so angry that he laughed instead. He stared at Han Chao. "Lord Han, from beginning to end, I've been sincere and even specially prepared a big gift for you, but you yourself chose to give it up. You gave up this 3-patterned spirit armor." He slowly took out the final 3-patterned spirit armor from his sleeve cuff. The sunlight that penetrated through the door shone on the 3-patterned spirit armor. It was beautiful like a dream. A strange radiance softly twinkled. Light, soft, and from top to bottom it was like a whole. It was like a masterpiece of heaven, firmly binding everyone's gazes, unable to shift away for a moment. Looking at the beautiful armor twinkling with a strange radiance, Han Chao suddenly froze. His facial expression froze. In his heart, he couldn't help but crazily shout, 3-patterned spirit armor, it's actually 3-patterned spirit armor. This 3-patterned spirit armor should have originally belonged to him. But just now, he had personally pushed away this legendary treasure. A feeling of remorse unstoppably bubbled up in his heart. P.S. The second update has been delivered. Rest well tonight. Tomorrow afternoon, there will be an explosion of new chapters. Tomorrow afternoon, be there or be square. Finally, I beg for monthly votes. Artificer Group, 204276549. The novel Frenzy of Artificers will have even more fresh content on the official WeChat platform. At the same time, there's a 100% chance of drawing a big gift for everyone. Open WeChat right now, click the plus sign at the top right to add friend, search for the public account Kdred, and follow. Hurry up! Chapter 248. 3-Rune Spirit Armor. Han Chao had also heard of such a treasure. Perhaps he did not know how terrifying the defensive effects of the 3-Rune Spirit Armor were, but he knew that such a treasure was something that even the legendary Supremes would go crazy for. There were very few Supremes in the world who possessed 3-Rune Spirit Armor. No matter how stupid he was, he understood how terrifying the value of such a treasure was. 3-Rune Spirit Armor. He muttered these words, but his heart was bleeding. There had been a moment when the 3-Rune Spirit Armor was so close to him, almost in his hands, but he had forcefully pushed it away, causing it to slip past his fingertips. He finally understood why Lin Feng could attract so many Supremes. 3-Rune Spirit Armor. It must be the 3-Rune Spirit Armor. At this moment, he almost could not help but say, I agree. But the opportunity had already been missed. He had rejected so firmly before, and now, if he changed his mind immediately, he would really lose all face, and even lose his last bit of backbone. Moreover, at this point, even if he was willing to change his mind, would Lin Feng still agree? His eyes were hesitant, and his heart was full of struggle. Lord Han. A faint voice entered his mind. I want to know, what is your wife's opinion on the matter between Miss Han and Lin Yun? Lin Feng stared at Han Chao and did not speak, but his voice directly entered Han Chao's ears. He was transmitting his voice. Without waiting for Han Chao to speak, Lin Feng said, If I am not wrong, your wife's attitude should be different from yours, right? In the process of transmitting his voice, he carefully observed Han Chao's expression. Hearing this, Han Chao's expression changed. Lin Feng calmed down and continued, If I directly explain this matter to your wife, and obtain your and Miss Han's agreement, then, even if you don't agree, what can you do? Will the world blame me for this? Han Chao's face was flushed red. He clenched his fists tightly and looked at Lin Feng with a gaze that seemed to be about to burst into flames. However, Lin Feng's expression didn't change in the slightest. He calmly replied, Master Han, if I really did this, Miss Han and Lin Yun would definitely be together, and no one would be able to say anything about it. However, I didn't do this. Instead, I came here with sincerity. I put aside my past grievances, and only wanted to obtain your consent. I even prepared a great gift for you. Do you still think I went overboard? Han Chao snorted coldly, but did not refute. That's right, even if he had a problem with the Lin brothers, Lin Feng's actions today were indeed very sincere. If not for his repeated rejections and the Qin clan's threats and pressure, how could Lin Feng be forced to give them a taste of their own medicine? From the beginning to the end, Lin Feng had been polite to him. It could be said that he had done his utmost benevolence. Hence, he had no way to refute Lin Feng's words. Lin Feng wholeheartedly begged for Master Han's consent. I only hope that Miss Han can marry into the Lin family without any worries. I hope that her marriage can obtain the blessings of her parents. This is very important to a woman. If not, Lin Feng would have left long ago and directly looked for your wife and Miss Han. Why bother wasting my breath here? Lin Feng stared at Han Chao. He spoke quickly and anxiously, his aura becoming more and more oppressive. At this moment, Han Chao could only respond with silence. Lin Feng had said most of what needed to be said. He finally cupped his hands and said, "Master Han, Miss Han is your daughter after all. I believe that your love for Miss Han in the past was not fake. Could you really bear to let your daughter marry someone she doesn't like and regret it for the rest of her life?" Lin Feng beseeches Master Han to agree to this matter. Lin Feng can guarantee that the two of them will have a grand wedding. I can even ask His Majesty to preside over their wedding. These words came from his mouth, so everyone around could hear them. It could be considered that he was finding a way out for Han Chao. For the sake of his daughter's lifelong happiness, changing his mind was still acceptable, right? After saying this, he transmitted his voice again. "Master Han, if you agree, the three-striped spirit armor will still belong to you. Consider it a small token of appreciation from Lin Feng." At this moment, Han Chao was stunned. A blazing light flashed across his eyes. After hesitating for a moment, he asked, "Really?" Perhaps in the eyes of others, he was asking Lin Feng if he could really ask His Majesty to preside over their wedding. However, only Lin Feng knew that Han Chao was asking about the three-striped spirit armor. Lin Feng nodded. "I'm not joking. Would the Han dynasty reject the offer of a way out and treasures? All right, I promise you." Han Chao took a deep breath. "Just as you said, there is no father who doesn't want to see his daughter happy. Now, since you are willing to take out the three-striped spirit armor as a betrothal gift and even ask His Majesty to preside over her wedding with Lin Yun, this proves that the Lin family values my daughter greatly. As such, if she marries into the Lin family, I'm sure you won't treat her unfairly." His words were dignified, but only he himself knew what he was really thinking. After saying this, he looked at Qin Xiong and said apologetically, "Brother Qin, regarding this matter, I have let down the Qin family." Qin Xiong chuckled. "Brother Han, don't say that." He glanced at Qin Ku and shook his head with a smile. "This matter is actually the fault of the two of us. The son of a dog and your daughter are both incomparably resistant. If we forced the two of them to be together, perhaps the result would really be terrible." At this point, the matter was basically considered to have come to a successful conclusion. Although the process was full of twists and turns and caused such a big commotion unintentionally, the result was still very satisfactory to Lin Feng. He said to Han Chao, "Since Lord Han has agreed, then I hope Lord Han can accept this betrothal gift." As he said this, he handed the three-striped spirit armor to Han Chao. He was not worried that outsiders would snatch Han Chao's three-striped spirit armor. After all, this three-striped spirit armor was a gift from him, and the Han family was the Lin family's in-laws. Now that his reputation was at its peak, no one would risk offending him to snatch Han Chao's three-striped spirit armor. And the matter of him wanting to deal with the Shui family was only known to a very small number of people. The rest were completely unaware. Moreover, even if everyone knew, no one would dare to touch the Han family. One must know that he had invited a total of 36 supreme martial artists. No one would believe that the 8 super clans together could withstand the joint attack of 36 supreme martial artists with three-striped spirit armor. Moreover, there were also 3 supreme martial artists, unfettered supremacy, fluttering snow supremacy, and star supremacy. As long as Lin Feng was still around, the Han family and the Zhao royal family would be safe and sound. Given the current situation, no one would think that Lin Feng would be in trouble. Even people like Unfettered Supremacy, who knew the inside story, did not think that anything would happen to Lin Feng. Han Chao hesitated for a moment and glanced at the supreme martial artists and stage 9 powerhouses around him. The group of powerhouses immediately turned their heads away, but their eyes were filled with envy. "Please accept it, Lord Han," Lin Feng said again. "Huff! Han Chao took a deep breath and stretched out his trembling hand to take the three-striped spirit armor. Although he tried his best to suppress his emotions and calm himself down, there was still an uncontrollable look of ecstasy in his eyes. The three-striped spirit armor. Now, it belongs to me. Seeing him like this, Lin Feng sighed inwardly. If I had known that he was so greedy, why would I have gone through so much trouble? Wouldn't it be fine if I just showed him the three-striped spirit armor the moment I came? After keeping the three-striped spirit armor close to his body, Han Chao shouted to the guards outside the door, "Quickly, ask Wei Wei to come over." "Yes, Lord." The two guards immediately replied. After saying that, they carefully passed by the group of supreme martial artists and Stage 9 powerhouses and quickly walked to the back of the mansion. The Qin family and the many supreme martial artists and Stage 9 powerhouses also took their leave. There was nothing else for them to do after this. At the back of the Han residence, in a small independent courtyard, a room on the second floor was locked, but a young woman with delicate features was locked inside. The woman looked out of the window in a daze, expressionless. Not long after, two guards came here and exchanged a few words with the two guards who were originally guarding outside the room. One of them immediately took out a key and opened the door. "Mississippi." The guard walked into the room and said respectfully, "Lord invites you in." The woman slowly came back to her senses, and a glimmer of light returned to her eyes. "However," she said coldly, "tell my father that I won't agree. Even if I have to be locked up for life, I won't agree." The guard smiled bitterly and said in a low voice, "Miss, please don't make things difficult for us." Hearing that, the woman looked at him coldly and snorted. "Fine, I'll go with you." Soon, the woman followed the two guards into the main hall of the mansion. At this time, the group of supreme martial artists and Stage 9 powerhouses had already left. Qin Qiong, Qin He, Qin Ku, and the others had also left. Only Han Chao, Lin Feng, and Unfettered Supreme were left in the main hall. "Seniors, please take a seat," Han Chao said respectfully. Unfettered Supreme and the other two glanced at Han Chao but ignored him. Han Chao immediately revealed an awkward expression. He wanted to say something, but before he could, a cold voice came from outside. "Father." Hearing that, Han Chao, Lin Feng, and the others immediately turned to look. They saw Han Weiwei slowly walking into the main hall, looking at Han Chao indifferently. Her whole body was emitting a cold aura, as if she didn't want anyone to come close. A lively girl who was originally careless had now become cold and silent. In just a short year, the change was so great that it was hard to imagine. Lin Feng frowned and looked at Han Chao deeply. Feeling Lin Feng's gaze, Han Chao was immediately embarrassed. It was because he had forced Han Weiwei many times, and even locked her in the house for a long time, forbidding her from contacting any outsiders, that Han Weiwei had become like this. Although Lin Feng now had the urge to teach Han Chao a lesson, he finally restrained himself. He turned to look at Han Weiwei and said, "Miss Han, we haven't met for a year and a half. Do you still remember me?" Han Weiwei indifferently turned to look at Lin Feng. Her blurry memories gradually became clear. "You are," she suddenly shouted, "Big Brother Lin." Lin Feng smiled and said, "Fortunately, you still remember me." At this time, Han Weiwei immediately turned to look at Han Chao and said anxiously, "Father, I didn't agree to marry into the Qin family. It was my own decision. It has nothing to do with anyone else. Why did you capture Big Brother Lin?" She anxiously looked at Han Chao. "Big Brother Lin is innocent. Father, Weiwei begs you, please let him go. P.S. The first update is here." Today's update is very popular. Please vote, please support. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.